everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap, a show where we talk about video games and whatever funny flights of fancy we happen to get off on. It's been a while since I've been recording. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. I come in, Kyle has a new haircut, Blood looking as stoic and awesome as ever. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm talking about my guests without first properly introducing them. Do you ever step away from something for a while and you think you're going to come back and you nail it? Yeah. And you're like, that's how I feel about hosting Frame Trap right now, where it's like, I got to feel this out. And it might be a long, painful train wreck of a process.
I think Kyle with a new haircut is one of the best intros I've had in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You did the intro.
Don't you think that's the most obvious thing, though? Just like,
new haircut.
I always go for the obvious things. I always go for, wow, that's a cool video game thing you're wearing on your shirt.
Yeah.
You sure do like Shenmue, Huber.
Yeah.
So, so you ever get... There are things I think that you get disappointed in with yourself that no one else points out, and you just kind of want somebody else to point them out so you don't feel so bad about it, so that they recognize it. Yeah. You ever get that way? Are there things where you host a podcast and you're like, why is no one criticizing me on this?
Yes.
You get mad at all the things they're actually criticizing you about, but
absolutely
not the real thing. Right next to me, playing along very well, is Kyle Bossman.
Hey. And
at the end there is Daniel Bloodworth.
Hello.
The reason it's been so long since I've seen you guys is I've been in the absolutely frigid land, actually negative 20.
Truly frigid.
Yeah, truly frigid land of Iowa.
Yeah, related to that, we were originally thinking that because we couldn't go back to my wife's parents for Christmas as well, it was like, oh, we'll just do it like a month later. We'll go end of January, beginning of February. And the whole time we were in Florida, we're looking at the temperatures and why would we be there right now?
Yeah, where does she live?
Omaha, right.
Omaha.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Yeah, on the other side of Iowa there. So
I didn't spend too much time looking at it, but just briefly scanning the news and seeing Florida residents kind of freaking out that it was snowing and just their responses to that.
Yeah, so the cold snap finally got down there right on New Year's Day, pretty much right when we were leaving.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the holidays, how was it for you guys? Well, what is the... Do you have a thing that you do that's the same every year? Was it different this year? Did you get any good gifts? Did you give any good gifts?
Highly irregular this year.
Okay.
I got a new home in North Carolina in that my parents sold the old childhood home. It's gone. My ties to upstate New York are gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kyle, I got to tell you really quick.
Yeah.
I moved out of the home that I grew up in my freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And didn't think much of it at the time, but to this day, the home that my parents live in now doesn't feel like my actual home.
Yeah.
There's this weird
for sure.
disconnect, despite it being, a home that I've known for a longer period of time now, which is really weird. Just about, anyway.
Ben, I had an extremely vivid dream, probably this morning, where I woke up and had to go to the bathroom, and I was I went into the bathroom and I flipped on the lights, and it's that bathroom in my childhood home. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, this isn't right. I gotta wake up. And so I woke up, and then I went to the bathroom and I tried to flip on the lights and I couldn't, and I was in that childhood bathroom again. It's weird.
That is weird.
Weird, man. I was trapped in there, and that's the last time I'll see that bathroom is that dream.
Yeah.
I'm never going to see that bathroom again in my life. That bathroom's gone. That's somebody else's bathroom now.
Do you think you'd ever take a trip, drive past the old home?
That'd be some trip, Ben. That'd be out of what am I there for? What am I up?
That's it.
Yeah.
And the closer you get, the weirder you feel about it. The
for sure. Yeah.
What starts as an innocent, I'm just going to revisit the childhood home, you start to feel apprehensive at your own weirdness.
It'd have to be Don Draper taking the kids to see his old home. It'd have to be like that. It's something happened to me, and I'm I lost my roots. Come on, kids, get in the car. It'd have to be that. It would be that, I think.
Yeah, we had kind of weird experiences with that because the house that I was in until I was about 10, after my parents split up, then it went back to my grandparents, and then when we were adults, my brother actually bought that house.
Oh, nice.
So I got a weird second experience in that house for a few years before he ended up losing it and moving away. But it's strange because it's still it's still right there in my hometown. Like, it's easy for me to drive by there anytime if I wanted to.
Did he change it pretty dramatically?
He didn't change it super dramatically. He did a lot of great work on the yard for those years that he was in there and like cleaning that up. But yeah, so that was just one of the weird things. Is like, oh, I remember when like my grandparents got us this tree, and the tree is just gigantic now, you know, and stuff like that.
This is way off course, but Blood, I want to know how you felt listening to your brother buying a home when we're here in LA renting for the rest of our lives.
Well, I mean, that was, yeah. I mean, he wasn't able to keep it, so I don't know.
Bloodworth has the last laugh now.
I don't know. Well, no, because it's yeah, that's a weird situation. I won't go into all the details.
Okay, all right.
But, you know, yeah, he's back to renting at the moment, so.
Sure.
But, yeah, I got to see his new place and check that out, and so that was cool.
Speaking of buying a home, going back to Iowa, and friends that one of them I had known for a long time, since the beginning of high school. Her and her husband just bought a new home.
Cool.
And it's one of those houses where, you know, she's slightly younger than I am, and I just think to myself, am I doing something wrong? Like, it's just such a nice, like, beautifully decorated, brand new home. Yeah. They're sitting there watching football in front of the fireplace. And I like my apartment. It's a cozy little apartment, but it is a little tiny apartment. Yeah. And it's a completely different world. Like, getting that kind of thing out here is impossible. You don't even think about it. Yeah. Because that's how far out of reach it is. But speaking of the experience of buying and renting property, something that I've noticed is I've lived in, I don't know, probably 5 places since I could, since I moved out and had my own place. I'm not really attached to any of them. And I think the way that you view where you live as an adult is so different than where you were as a kid. You're not forming any memories. Like, the way that I am trying to constantly make my own space is just, like, more convenience all the time. Like, let's get the things that I want closer. Let's put the food closer to the television. That kind of mindset. Like, it's like this ruthless efficiency to be as convenient and lazy as possible. It's not like, oh, that is the tree that I used to swing from. It's not like that. It's completely different. Is that just me being a jerk, or is there a difference in how you view things?
I love this voice. Yeah, that is the tree.
That's the tree that
I swung from this tree.
Oh, I used to stare out the window and the leaves would change color. Yeah. That kind of
my
thing.
slide. Yeah, Ben. Yeah, I live a very pragmatic life in my little apartment.
I hope you don't mind me telling this, but just your ruthless efficiency with getting rid of things. It's something that I've developed now.
Yeah.
Because we just got a couple of new cats, and we were cleaning the apartment for them. And I think when you just don't have a lot of time and you need to clear up space, your emotional detachment just goes way down. You're just like, get rid of it, go throw it in the dumpster. Let's go. We got to get space, and you don't miss it. That's the thing, is you don't miss most of that stuff.
You don't need stuff.
And some of the things that you would tell me about, I'd be like, really? You're getting rid of that? But now I understand. That's all I wanted to say. Now I understand. We haven't really talked about the holidays too much, other than your new home. Blood, did you have any good holiday experiences?
I had good experiences, bad experiences, crazy. Yeah, my holidays were kind of very eventful. We went to Disney World, where I haven't been for ages, since I was growing up, I don't think. And my wife had never been there.
Nice.
So that was cool.
It's always awesome taking somebody who hasn't been to Disney. It's always a good experience.
Going on some roller coasters and all that.
Nice.
And
did you go to Avatar Land?
No, that's actually, so we spent most of our time in Magic Kingdom. We were planning to be there just the whole day, and we were like, yeah, they got the Christmas parade and everything, and then we we're on the tram on the way there, and they're telling us about, oh, the park closes at 6:00 for the people that are coming in for the Christmas stuff at night, and we're like, what? It's like separate tickets.
They shove everyone out?
Yeah.
Oh.
You have to have separate tickets, which apparently sold out like months in advance.
Oof.
And so, but we were able to so this was funny because while we were waiting 2 hours in line for Space Mountain, my mom went and talked to the customer service people to see if there were any extra tickets that we could pick up last minute or something like that. And then we get out and she's like, I got park hoppers. I'm like, what? Like, so what we did is after Magic Kingdom, we popped over to Epcot.
Yeah.
Super dead tired at that point, not appreciating what had been done. I was like exhausted, like in a Moroccan cafe, like having coffee. But then they had this really cool fireworks show to like end the night. And so, like, the way Epcot is set up is, like, there's, like, all these world's countries around this big lake. And so when they do the fireworks show, it's all centered on, like, all these fireworks are coming out of the lake. And there's, like, torches around at each country and stuff, too. And, like, the whole park becomes the fireworks show. Because as they start talking about Norway, and, like, Norway lights up. And they start about Italy, and all of Italy lights up. And then they've got this, like, globe thing out on a boat, which is just nuts because it's spinning, but like every continent is like an LED video screen, and they're showing videos from all the different countries on all the different continents. And then thing opens up like a orange, and a torch comes out, and then fireworks are coming out from it. And I was like, okay, I don't know what the heck this thing is. This is cool. So that started out the trip. What you got a question?
No, I just wanted to comment on the park hopper and you saying that you were exhausted.
Yeah.
Because I've never done a park hopper for that very reason, where like whenever I've done Disneyland or California Adventure, like that's been my whole day.
Yeah.
And I've gone to both places enough where I kind of know what I want to hit and what I want to do, but still just the whole idea of dealing with a big theme park, that's like a whole day thing. But then I think to myself, maybe I'm just not at that level yet. Maybe
The Jones level.
Maybe
Yeah.
Brandon Jones looks at a park hopper like this is the only option. You know, maybe like a Michael Huber who used to spend his high school afternoons at Disneyland just for fun. Maybe that's a different tier of person that's geared
Right.
toward, and I just haven't gotten to that space yet.
Yeah, because it's funny because growing up in Florida with all the theme parks that are out there, I there are times when I thought it's like, oh yeah, like I grew up, we went to Busch Gardens and Adventure Island and SeaWorld and all these stuff, and I feel like I've done that a lot or whatever, but then compared to people here with Disneyland, it's like people are at Disneyland like every weekend.
Yeah.
Like full-grown adults taking their picture with Minnie and Daisy. I'm like, okay, this is craziness.
It's just different personality types.
Yeah.
I think that's what I've tried to rationalize it with myself, because like I'm getting too lazy to even like go out for food.
Yeah.
Like the discovery of things like Uber Eats and Grubhub has been detrimental to my own tendencies to like not even want to get in the car. But
speaking of Uber Eats, which I've never used, but the boba shop close to my house has like a certificate from Uber Eats now for being like a local favorite or something.
well, take whatever angle you can.
Yeah, I guess so.
Take whatever angle you can. Blood, you said you had some bad parts?
I don't know if I'd say completely bad, but okay. So the other kind of events of the break, I did. I was not sure how it was going to turn out, but I did like a mini meetup for people that were in Florida. So like about I think like 7 or 8 people, something like that, eventually came, and so there are a couple that were close by, but some of them like came down from Tampa area, St. Pete area. And then there's a guy that was just picking his wife up from the airport that night, and so he was having to drive out in sort of that general direction anyways. And so he came before going to the airport, and then there were people that were just like down in the area from like New York and from Sweden, and so that was cool.
In an 8-person meetup, do you lead the conversation?
Jason Sackle led that conversation.
Okay.
I'll give the credit to him. I don't know
Sure.
if I could have led and carried the conversation for 4 hours, but
Yeah.
Jason Sackle was just like he just had new topics just coming up constantly. So,
All right.
but then I spent a lot of time in hospitals. So for one, kind of a hard situation to explain, but basically there's a girl that's been staying with my mom. And she had her baby while we were there, and so had the hospital ride and timing contractions and all that stuff. And
That's a woman then. That's no girl.
well, she's 19, so I mean,
Sure.
here's the thing is, so she and another girl have been kind of hanging out with my mom for several years or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like I've seen them grow up.
Got it. All right.
And also like her mom went to high school with me. Even though I don't really remember her, but she remembers me. She knows my name and stuff. So me and my wife, like they called us, well, they still call us sometimes moms and pops.
Okay.
And so it's like,
fair.
here's this literal moment where like
Moms
I
and
could
pops.
be a grandfather right now in a different timeline. And so it's,
Yeah. All right.
it's kind of crazy.
Grandfather blood.
But then the same day that the baby came home, we were out fishing, and my mom slipped and hit her head on the rocks, and so I had to take my mom to the emergency room and get her stitched up.
Is she okay?
Yeah, so
Okay.
she got stitches out yesterday. So,
Okay.
but
Don't go fishing on the rocks, man.
it's my brother was the one leading the way. So
All right. Ugh. That stuff makes
Apparently,
me
they
nervous.
saw a shark too. That me and my wife missed. But
How much of your total time while you were away did you spend in a hospital? Because that
just
I just
a
don't like- I just don't
couple
like
days.
hospitals.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
like hospitals either. So, but yeah, so we were there like when we took her in when she went into labor, and we were there like after she had the baby, and then we were there when mom went to the emergency room. So
you mentioned a different timeline, you being a grandfather, and that made me. I've been watching some Dragon Ball Super,
Great.
and so that made me think. In Dragon Ball Super, there are different universes where you have basically all of the same things that you have in one universe. You have in a different universe, but they take maybe a different form.
Yeah.
I wonder what like Universe 6 Kyle and Bloodworth would look like. Would it be like a Frieza Frost situation, or would it be like a I don't know.
Because Ben, I mean, if we're going technical way into it, that's the kind of weird thing is that there are two Friezas, but there aren't two of anyone else.
Right, but just for fun,
Oh, okay.
like,
See, this is hard for me
Kyle
to.
Black, I don't know. That kind of thing.
I'm the constant. I'm the same.
You're the same?
We had the funnest. Have you ever seen Bright, the dumb Will Smith movie?
No.
I've seen posters.
So it's a movie on Netflix.
I mean, I know of it.
It's a
but-
fantasy universe. Hate watched it with a friend. We were cracking up because it's this alternate universe, right? Where it's like, orcs are real, dragons are flying above LA, but
Is that how
everything
the
else
pitch
is the
meeting
same.
went?
I don't think we could have LA if they were dragons. I'm just saying.
about the
LA
same.
just works. LA just happens somehow. Anyway, the two things that
Too
are
fire prone.
that are equal. The two things that are actually the same are Joe Rogan's podcast. For some reason, everything else is different, but Joe Rogan still has the exact same podcast for some reason.
Sure.
And Shrek, for some reason, existed in that world. Because Will Smith calls his orc buddy Shrek looking. And it's like, how could you make Shrek in this world where orcs are real?
But is it just like popular movies that turned into an extended joke? Is it the exact same that it is here?
It's just, yeah, well, we don't see Shrek, but he says, you look like Shrek.
Right.
And the idea of like Shrek existing in a world where orcs really do exist is
Shrek's
so
an ogre.
offensive. What's up?
Shrek's an ogre, not an orc.
You're right. Shrek is an ogre. And so this idea of, why tell the story of Shrek? Oh, man.
Okay.
So those are the two constants. Those are the only two things that are actually the same.
You were freaking out that you have actual ogres existing and you have Shrek.
Yeah.
But there's different variations of everything. I mean, you've got like fierce dragons that tear people apart and murder millions or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have the super cutesy dragons. So couldn't you feasibly have Shrek, who is called an ogre, but then have gross-looking actual fierce ogres? Couldn't you have both?
You could have both.
But that idea offends you.
It does. It offends me that Shrek
All right.
exists in the world of Bright.
I just wanted to be clear.
Fix it. Patch it.
We're about 19 minutes in, and I enjoy the extended banter about Shrek and all that stuff. But we have a much longer list of games than we've had the last couple of episodes, and so I want to dig in. But the game I want to start with is one that I've been increasingly curious about, and you've been putting a lot of time into, Blood, with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say a lot of time compared to the people that are playing it obsessively, but I've
Compared to the rest of us.
6 or 7 hours, I guess, altogether so far. Yeah. Because I did a stream before I left, and I did a stream after I left, and then, before both of those streams, like I put a couple hours in the nights before just to warm up and see what the heck was going on. But I've been playing the Xbox version, which a lot of commenters have been saying is very painful to see me do. And there
Not
are
even the One X version, just the straight up Xbox One version.
well, before I left, I was using the One X.
Oh, okay.
Before I brought it back to Brandon's.
How much of a difference is that between the two consoles for that specific game?
What I think the main thing that seems to be different, and it's hard because there's been like huge patches in between that break, but it seems to me the main difference is just in how quickly like the world kind of loads in. You know, like it is like 0.5 in terms of version number right now. It's like really early access on Xbox. So yeah, I have definitely had moments when the match is starting up where like I walk into a house and like the room hasn't quite appeared yet and stuff like that.
Whoa.
And then same thing with like the textures on the plane and ground and like when you're like dropping in because you drop out of a plane and you skydive into the map. And so like that process is like you see like this weird like blurry image and then like start diving and it's like, oh, okay, there's trees, okay, there's a building there, okay, it's like just all popping in as you're falling. And so that's kind of maybe one of the big differences.
The way that I've been off and on playing PUBG has been I'll be on late at night and a friend will go, hey, do you want to play this? And they've played way, way, way more than I have. And so they're like, okay, found this. This is important. You pick this up. And so it's been a very guided experience where I've just been kind of tagging along and going along with it and trying to survive as much as possible. But had I been completely on my own, trying to imagine that situation, like, how has the process of learning been for you, I guess? Has it been pretty intuitive, figuring out what you need, what's effective? Has it just been a process of trial and error? Has it been interacting with chat, comments? Like, what is that?
Yeah, there definitely have been some tips from chat for sure. I think the main thing when I first dropped in is just the controls sometimes are a little weird, and a lot of the UI stuff is a little weird on a controller, especially.
That would
it's like
be what I would most worried about.
You're
Yeah.
trying to pick things up, and then you go into inventory, and like you got like, you know, right bumper over to this list and go through and like attach that over here, and then it's like, wait, how do I unattach it? And then like even things like, so like with the left trigger, like you hold it to do kind of like a more focused hip fire, but then you just have to like tap it really quick to aim down sights. And so like getting the feel of that can be a little strange.
Has there been any deaths while you've been fumbling with the inventory, trying to pick stuff up or put stuff on the ground or something like that?
I think maybe at first, not more. Yeah, not like after that first night. I don't think so much.
I have to say, I saw a pretty amazing Smug Blood branded clip where you were driving down a road in a car. I believe you were by yourself.
Yeah. I haven't played any kind of squads or team up or anything yet.
Oh, nice. So you were driving down the bridge, and there's a guy shooting you, and you're completely silent, by the way. And you just very casually just slightly turn, I believe it was to the left, and you just kill him. And your only response is, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're kind of getting more confident? Do you feel like you can consistently do pretty well as you're playing?
I mean, I've been experimenting with strategy. With that moment, it was just one of these things where it's like, I am in a moving car, and you're going to stand in front of that car on a bridge and shoot at it. Like, that's not... Chances of that working out are not very well.
Looks cool in movies, though. What if they killed you? It'd be so fun.
It would have been. Yeah. But it's like get behind a barricade or on top of another car or something like that, because there are like rusted out cars there.
Yeah.
So they're just stand in the middle of the bridge. The one advantage they have though is the frame rate, where like if I start moving too much left or right, I can't actually see you very well. So, especially in a vehicle. So yeah. But yeah, so I think the first stream that I did, the first couple of sessions I did, I was just trying to slowly wander around and figure things out. And the second one, like, okay, I have a strategy now, and it's run and hide, you know. And it's like, because this isn't a game about how many people I can kill. This is about being the last person alive So I'm going to get stuff that I need, and then I'm going to find a place that's in the safe zone, and I'm just going to hunker down and wait for somebody to walk in the door. When they walk in the door, they get blasted with a shotgun. And then I get some more gear, and then when the circle goes, it's like, okay, I'm going to go into the circle and like find the next house and hunker down again. You know, and I know it's not the most interesting thing to watch, but it's gotten me to top 3 twice now. So
What happens after that, though? Your top 3, what happened both times?
I'm trying to remember the first time. I might have just been kind of caught by a surprise. But the second time when I was actually streaming, it's like, I was in top 5. I managed to get one guy down, and then I thought I had more healing items than I didn't.
Oh.
But then, I think it's one of those things where it's like there's a lot of this game is just like learning to keep your cool. And so it's like I knew I was in that top 3. I saw people over there, and then I saw like the circle that was left was this tiny thing like out in the open. And it was like, all right, I don't have much time. Like, I got to take one of these guys down. And then I started looking over for him. And then for whatever dumb reason, I decided that, like, I wanted to change to my shotgun. And it was like that. It was that moment where it was like swapping weapons that, like, he was able to get the advantage on me.
Is the desert map available on Xbox?
No, it's not on there.
Okay.
It's just the main one.
So you haven't experienced that?
No.
Okay. My next question is, this is a game where it's just completely spiraled out of control in terms of popularity. It's being on a lot of best of the year list. It's gotten like perfect 10s at certain spots. Do you feel like now that you've put a decent amount of time into it that you sort of understand the appeal? And can you articulate like what that appeal is? Can you pinpoint what sort of caused it to blow up so dramatically?
I mean, I think that the appeal is that there is that chance that like anyone can find a way to do this. You know, like I was saying, like I've gotten to top 3 and like my aim has not been great. You know, it's like there are strategies that you can kind of find that work for you. There's a lot of different ideas to play with. There's a lot of fun that you can have that isn't about necessarily, you know, getting up to the top. Like one of the best moments was I was hunkered down in this house. It was right before the one you're talking about with the bridge. I was hunkered down at this house, and I was like, I heard, because a lot of it is about sound, and playing with headphones is huge. And so I heard this car start driving around the area that I was in, and then it pulled up and stopped. And I'm like, oh, there's somebody here. And I'm like, all right, are they going to come through the door? What? And then I don't know why, but I think I got the impression that like they walked the other way or something. And like, all right, I can't help myself. So I just like ran out the door and stole their car and just started driving.
Right.
You know, and like, that's it. I got your car. Like that was just stealing the dude's car when he had no idea I was there was great.
Yeah. It's really fascinating because when I think about the other, I guess, shooter that really blew up, thinking about something like Overwatch, where how successful you are at aiming does matter in Overwatch, but if your team isn't functioning together well, if you're not fulfilling specific roles, or if you don't have a strategy as a group, you're not going to make it. Whereas in PUBG, seeing videos of guys who are able to, like, just these tiny dots running across the field and then being able to calculate on the fly, like, this is where I need to shoot to take them down immediately is really impressive. And just that...
Yeah, when you get sniper kills, it's pretty satisfying.
Right, but at the same time, you can have those players coexisting with other players who are really just good at moving at the right time, knowing when and where to hide, and they can't shoot for crap, but it doesn't matter because eventually, like, that will work. Like, it's just all the different personalities can kind of coexist until they're all, like, thrown together in that tiny circle, which is just super, super, super stressful. Like, every time I make it, which isn't often, but every time I make it to, like, the top 5, being there, I almost just feel like I'm just waiting to get shot. And that's always what happens. Is that you're prone, you're in the grass, you're slowly, like, moving around the circle, going from tree to tree, and then I get shot and I don't even see my attacker. It's just like these hawks who are able to pick you off. so efficient.
Yeah, and I do think that's one thing. Like I've heard, like with the PC version, like people that like switch it down to low settings have an advantage because you think you're hiding in the grass and they just don't see any grass.
Right.
And I think too, like a draw distance contributes to that as well. So I think that's one of the things. Like even though the Xbox is so far behind, that I feel like the Xbox will eventually even that playing field a bit because everybody has the same stuff drawn on the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like I definitely see the appeal and the popularity of it. I think when it comes to that and critics, it's a little weird. I'd have to play the PC version to really say, but it's strange for that. Like some of the weirdness with the UI and stuff like that to be like completely overlooked. And it's like, oh yeah, this is it. This is a game of the year, or this is a perfect 10. You know, it's like yeah, I get that sometimes games can be messy and stuff, but it's like I don't know. It's a weird one because it's like it's not like it's the things that it's messy with. It's not like we haven't had games figure those things out before, you know. And I think the other thing that's weird about that too is they're raking in so much money. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you not just find the people that can make this stuff like butter and just like make the game about the game?
Well, don't you think when you reach a certain level that not that there aren't a lot of eyes or expectations, but when you're so commanding over an audience that you have a lot of control over what you do things and when you do them, and regardless of that pace, it seems like for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, like this is going to be a thing. This is an institution now.
Yeah.
But my question,
I mean, it's like a corporation, literally.
Right,
yeah.
Right. My question for you is, as a critic, how do you reconcile those two things? How do you say, like, this is a game where I can point to all of these different stories that I've had, and it's really exciting, and I'm still drawn to it, and I want to keep playing it, but I can acknowledge that this is a mess. This is bad. This is poorly done. Why isn't this fixed? Like, how do you balance those two things? At a certain point, I guess the larger question is, if you're having an amazing time every time you're playing, and that's consistent, doesn't that trump everything else? But how much does it trump everything else?
Right. Yeah. I think that's really the question, is how much. And I think, you know, people have fallen on different lines. I mean, I think the one thing is, yeah, even with the Xbox version, I haven't had too many instances where I could fault the messiness for why I died. You know, and I have had like some weird, frustrating situations, but I think, again, most of that seems to happen like towards the beginning of the match, and I don't know if that's because there's so many people, or if it's just because the world is loading in some ways at that point, or what.
Yeah.
But so I think that's probably where the worst of it comes in, is if you're one of those people that wants to drop into like the school or the prison or something where there's just going to be a load of players, then chances are that like you're going to start walking up to a door, and then like you're going to like lag and rubber band back before that door, and somebody's going to walk out another door and shoot you before you actually get in there, or something like that.
Right.
Whereas if you're more cautious, you don't have to worry about that as much because you're just off in a house on your own. It's like, and so, you know, it's like, oh, the floor hasn't actually loaded yet. It's not the end of the world. Sure. Because there's nobody there to take advantage of it.
One thing that I will say about PUBG that is different from other games that I've played is it, in a way, it almost feels like it's kind of figured out this meta problem that I think it's so frustrating in our day and age, where you can sort of figure out a game so quickly and information is so readily available. Not that there aren't good strategies that you can practice in PUBG, not that people haven't made countless videos about that, but again, when you think about something like Overwatch, where there's a lot of generally agreed upon, okay, use this composition, this is the right thing to do, people will get mad at you if you don't do this. In PUBG, there's so much randomness with where that circle is going to be, where equipment is, and the field is just so wide.
I think that's part of it. It's like you start fresh every time, and like we're in an era where like every freaking shooter has some kind of progression system, and it's so much of it is about getting XP and getting numbers up and all of this, and PUBG is just like, you play this game for 40 hours and the only thing you have to show for it is you know more about how the game works.
Right. but that's enough.
Yeah, but
You don't
no,
need
I'm
all
saying
the other
that's what I'm
stuff.
saying.
Yeah.
It's like that's its advantage right now.
Right. And
Is it's doing that in an era where like everyone else is just like trying to prestige and get the best guns unlocked. And it's like, no, you can't get the best gun unlocked. You've got to just hope you find it, or you've got to kill the guy that's got it already.
Right. And you were talking about it kind of appealing to everyone regardless of your skill level, and we got, I believe it was a Q&A question of somebody that was intimidated about jumping into PUBG, and I was thinking about it, and it's like, regardless of where you are or how far you get, just the way that game is designed, you'll probably have a good time. You'll probably have some story to pull out of that to tell your friends, and that desire to seek out more stories and how different they're going to be each time is kind of enough. And I think that is really special, and I think that's really valuable, and I think that's why it's latched on the way that it has. Kyle,
Yeah.
from the outside looking in, you don't, not trying to put words in your mouth, but you don't like multiplayer games.
I do not.
You just don't.
Yeah.
This is not your bag. How do you feel about this whole PUBG wave that has been happening? Are you sick of it?
No, it's the kind of thing where I seek understanding, and so I get to that point where I understand why people like the game, and then it's classified in my mind, and then I move forward.
Okay, a couple questions from that.
Yeah,
This whole religious process of seeking understanding.
yeah.
What is that process like for you? How do you seek understanding?
It's you try to get that perspective. Do you know what I mean? It's like flat earthers. I'm like, why? Why do you think that? And then I get it, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, okay, I get it.
So are
And then I
PUBG
move
players like flat earthers?
No, they're not. They're not at all. They're normal. PUBG players are the most normal person you could be, because you just you like the rush, and it's kind of like it's really like it's a game I think we all dreamt of for a long time. Just this survival game where it's like we just got to kill each other, man. It's the game we played when we were kids. We got Nerf guns. If you get shot, you're done. And then we'll pick up our darts and start again. But like it's the simplest version of shooting each other that you could have ever come up with.
But what's
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah,
though,
that's a good
a lot
point.
of the strategy in PUBG is about not shooting each other. It's about if you don't know that you can win that fight, don't start that fight.
Oh yeah, I've hidden in many Nerf fights. Absolutely, that's how they start. You know what I mean? It's not like we all start seeing each other. It's like you go to that side, I'll go to this side. Let's go.
I mean, that's an easy way to rationalize it, right? Because I think you could argue that the whole reason why we had maps in these confined arenas to begin with is because we couldn't do a huge at the time that shooters came into popularity, such an idea wasn't feasible. But with seeking this understanding, does that mean you'll play it a little bit, or you're watching people?
Just watching.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you know where to go? Who do you want to watch? What draws you to them? With the millions of people making PUBG stuff.
You know who I saw who had a really good stream is Danny O'Dwyer. Because
Likeable guy.
And he's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
He was explaining everything, and he's very good at the game.
Okay.
And so it was cool to see him just kind of casually explain the way he looks at the items that when he's like looting and picking those things up, and like that was a really good entry point for me, because even like Dr. Disrespect is like, what's going on here, man?
Sure.
And so like I really like Danny O'Dwyer. By the way, Dr. Disrespect out of the biz.
He's out.
He's out.
Oh, I think he was. I think I read that he was taking like some time off to figure out some personal things.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah.
understanding of
Yeah.
it. Okay.
That's the 2017 trending gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Awkward silence.
No, that was a healthy silence.
That was a healthy
Okay.
silence.
That was a healthy silence.
I'm going to agree with that. We're kind of taking... There's another game that I think is a big hitter on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Not... Now I'm just throwing a bunch of things under the bus. An obvious hitter. I think that's a better way of saying it. But there's a game that I'm curious about, Kaya, that you've been playing that I
Yeah.
haven't seen a lot of talked about outside of murmurings from within Easy Allies that like, hey, this is good. Hey, this is funny. Check this out.
Yeah.
And that is Accounting Plus, which is your
Oh,
VR
sure.
your VR pick
Yeah, my VR pick
for this frame trap.
Yeah. Accounting Plus is a PSVR game. Accounting No Plus is on Steam, and that's free. I feel like I should say that out front. This is an upgraded version of a free game that costs $12, you know? But they did double what's in it. I didn't play Accounting no plus, but I can see just from like watching the trailers, seeing the screenshots of stuff that is most likely added, and it is substantial. Accounting Plus is a funny game. It's a game about being a VR game, basically, and what it does a lot is presents you in these scenarios where you can choose what you want to do with it. You can speed run it really quickly, but one thing that I think is maybe unique to this game, I'm sure that everybody can think of other games that have done this in the past, but I think it's unique in its application in VR, is the idea of like picking up a phone and somebody's talking into it, and that person will talk to you for like a half hour. You know, the idea that just like they recorded so much of everything. And it's kind of how I feel about Mario Odyssey, in that, yeah, there's a lot of moons, but you shouldn't get all of them. The game doesn't want you to get all the moons. This game doesn't want you to listen to every conversation, but if you're into this one scenario, if you're into this one path, and you want to see where that leads, it goes places. These people will talk to you for so long. And I like, some of it's funny and some of it's bad improv, but it's just like, it's weird how it just kind of fills up this world of this game.
I want to collect all the moons in Mario Odyssey.
Don't do it, Ben.
But I want to.
Oh, okay.
If I didn't want to, I wouldn't do it. But the drive is there.
I do feel like the drive is there. Like
Yeah.
it's highly encouraged in Mario.
I don't think it is.
I just played it very, very brief. I was like showing the Switch to my parents. Over break. And I was in the Wooded Kingdom, and I found a whole section that I just hadn't. I mean, it wasn't hard to find, but a whole section that I hadn't been to.
Yeah.
I went through that kingdom. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's why the drive is there. Is the promise, the potential.
Sure, but eventually it's going to be like buy all the stars. Sorry, buy the moons to get to $9.99.
Don't you think when you kind of go into a game like Odyssey, where it's like here are like almost 1,000 things to get.
Yeah.
That you're kind of making a mental handshake with it, where it's like, I know a lot of this isn't going to be that exciting or special, but the deal to me, I'm being a time-paying customer here, is that there will be enough good moments that I'm willing to kind of wade through the not-so-good ones. That's kind of the handshake that I'm making.
Sure.
Like, I've got, like, 300 more moons. I'm not saying...
Oh, you're up there.
Yeah, I've got like early 600s is where
Nice.
I'm at.
Okay, yeah.
That's where I'm at.
I
know
think
the
I'm actually
exact
there
numbers.
too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Ben, I'm good. I'm like good at my early 600s. I know
Yeah.
that going further is where it gets to the grind.
Sure.
And I'm like cool with that. You know what I mean? I don't need to race the Koopas.
I love racing the Koopas. I love
pretty
racing the
good, yeah.
Koopas.
But okay, another example is Korok seeds.
Yeah.
And in fact,
okay. All right. Okay.
Zelda does not want you to get all the Korok seeds. In fact, it gives you like a little golden poop for doing it.
Yeah. But I want to touch on that really quick.
Okay.
I know I'm interrupting here, but
Yeah.
I think there's something, even if you know it's going to give you a pile of crap,
Yeah.
there's something kind of like, is it really going to give me a pile of crap that keeps you going? And you were talking about how there's bad improv here, or people
Yeah.
talk to you for a half hour.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's not even about what they're saying. It is, obviously, on some level, but it's just the fact that it's like, they're going to keep going? Like, I have to keep listening. Like, you're so amazed that it's happening that's what you get wrapped up
I just sort of like this freedom of this world where like these conversations are happening, and I know I can leave them at the same time. It's like I can leave this I don't have to listen to this. Like it's weird. I don't have to, and you can, like, you know what I mean? You could just drop the phone and you can still hear the chatter, like on the hanging phone. Something that's not happened to me in any video game ever. Is you can be on this phone and then the other character is shouting like, who are you talking to on the phone? And so you can actually hear two things at the same time. You can hear this guy shouting at you from there. Yeah, it's great. It's supposed to make you uneasy in that moment, and you're supposed to kind of be anxious and try to figure out what to do next in that zone. The zones themselves, I guess I don't want to talk too much because they are what the game is. But it shows a lot of creativity in the VR space, and I'm not laughing the entire time, but I'm still like appreciating the world that's delivered there. It's cool. It's really, really cool.
Two questions. One's a quick one. When you put down this phone, when you stopped hearing this conversation, was that like was that a natural I'm ready to move on, or was that a vindictive like I can't stand this?
It's not vindictive. No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it's cool. It's like you might like that character and you're kind of like, man, I'll hang out with this character. But then at this other point, you're like, okay, you're not funny anymore. I'll move on.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's like a museum that you can never see. It's like Disney World. You can't, there's no time in the day to see everything, and so you just kind of move on to the things that interest you the most.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of like that in a way.
Okay, I'm saying this 100% out of a place of respect, because it is. There are moments where I'm playing games now, and I think to myself, wait a minute, I should stop and take a knee. Like, there's so much amazingness going on here that I don't want to get lost in the muscle memory of doing the thing, checking the thing off the list, that it is important for me once in a while to appreciate the fact that somebody made this.
Yeah.
And that's something I really respect about you, and I think that's something you're very good at. But what I struggle to understand, and it's different for me with every game, is where do you draw the line at taking a knee with a game? And to not just throw out the phrase, to explain that, where do you take the line of just kind of looking around, taking it all in when you're playing a game, the environment, the dialogue, the characters, whatever it is, just soaking it all in? Where do you stop? What's the natural thing for you? Because I've seen you play games where it's like, no, I'm getting everything.
Yeah.
How do you determine I'm getting everything versus I've got my fill and I'm not going to see all this?
It's really interesting, Ben, because we'll talk about it a little bit with another game that I brought today, where like it is, I need to get all of this stuff, and I think it's if it's meaningful to the world, if it's still new and interesting to me, and so like there are conversations where I'm like, I gotta hear this whole thing,
right?
And I guess what that is it's it's lighting you up, it's engaging you. You are you're curious to see where it goes next. If the game you're playing is just 12 of the same bathroom with slightly different like toilet paper arrangements, you're not going to take a knee every time you go into that bathroom.
Yeah.
But if it's a new and exciting bathroom each new time, you're taking a knee. You want to see each little new detail, and so really it's just about whatever lights up your synapses, I guess.
If you were making a game, you were saying you knew a unique bathroom each time, and how exciting that would be.
Absolutely, yes.
How painstakingly would you put little things into your environment, and would you be worried that no one would see them?
I don't think you worry that no one would see them, because most people won't see any detail you put in anything, even if it's writing, But man, I think that I would put care into those bathrooms.
Okay.
I
really
believe
you.
Yeah.
I believe you. It sounds like a cool game.
Accounting Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. How long did it kind of take for you to get through it, I guess, if that's the right way to say it?
I think it was, we could say 2 hours total.
Okay.
The get through it was maybe like 1 or 1.5, and then you want to clean up and get all the trophies.
Sure. Sweet.
Because in this particular case, finding the trophies is interesting.
Okay, that's good.
Because I should have said that, yeah. They're not like, do this thing 1,000 times. It's like, oh, you could have done that? I could have done that thing? Oh, I get it. Okay, those kind of things. Yeah.
Very cool. The game that I'm going to talk about, 2 games technically that I'm going to talk about are something that we've talked about before. Blood, you've talked about it on here, and Huber's talked about it on here, but I need to talk about it because that's how impressed I was with it. And that is SteamWorld Dig 2.
Ooh,
okay,
nice.
Yeah, part of the story is I played SteamWorld Dig 2, and I was like, I want/need more, and then I played through SteamWorld Dig 1.
Oh, whoa.
Not the right order to do that in.
Sure.
And I'll touch on that.
Yeah.
Not that SteamWorld Dig 1 is a bad game, but it's just, in my opinion, SteamWorld Dig 2 is just such a huge improvement that I wish I would have played through 1 first and then kind of had the natural progression with 2. But the thing that I just love about SteamWorld Dig 2 is there's just this ruthless efficiency with all of it. With how it presents its world, it's very careful. Like that game is never getting in your face being like, okay, we made this world, here are all these characters. It's never going on and on and on. It's just like, these characters have a purpose. You're going to interact with them. You're going to do things with them. Occasionally you'll find like little outposts where you can just go around and flavor talk to people if you want. But for the most part, the sense, the vibe that you're getting comes naturally as you're doing things that you would normally do in that game. Namely, as you're mining ore, as you're digging through the environments that you need to dig to, you're selling it, they're telling you things. It just flows really well. And also, you're going from like one area that is very, very, very well themed. It's like, okay, you have this kind of basic deserty environment. That's going to go into a temple. That's going to go into kind of this weird forest area where you're like bouncing on these mushrooms and it's all glowing. All of those happen. Like this is like a 5-hour game, and all of those happen just so quickly. You're in this environment, you spend just enough time into it to enjoy it, and then you move on. And what you're moving on to has like the same central theme. You're still digging, you're still getting ore, you're still selling it at the town, but there's enough new mechanics that it feels completely different, but not so many new mechanics that it feels arbitrary or annoying. Like, it was one of those games where I can't imagine too many people played it over a long period of time. Like, it just sort of sucks you in and then is so confident and so well thought out at each of its points that you kind of just finish. Like, you kind of just go through it and feel really, really good about it. And I think that's, to me, is what is most remarkable about SteamWorld Dig 2.
Yeah.
But it was also a game we were talking about upgrades and stuff.
Yes.
And one of the weird things I thought about SteamWorld Dig 2 that I thought was interesting, and I kind of wanted to, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a negative, but it was just kind of an observation, is when you're starting out in SteamWorld Dig 1, you really can't get any far because you're playing as this this sort of miner. You're this digger, and you're going through the dirt, and you're getting ore, and you're collecting it, and you're bringing back, but you have light as a resource, and that drains really quickly, and you have a pouch. You can only carry so much ore back to town, and both of those things are really stringent in the beginning. It's like, I get a little ways down, I go back to town, I get a little ways down. By the end of the game, you can pretty much spend, after you've upgraded the lamp, after you've upgraded the pouch, all of this stuff, after you've done all of that, you can pretty much spend as much time as you want underneath the earth. And I was getting so much ore that was so valuable. I didn't get all of the upgrades, but it felt like getting upgrades was kind of trivial. And the whole how that game started out and the things that I expected to be like a kind of a constant concern became almost nothing. Like, that just faded into the background at a certain point. Is that something that happened with you guys at all, or were you always pretty intent on focusing on those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't the final lamp upgrade, isn't it infinite?
I'm not sure.
I think it won't go below like 50%.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So yeah, that concern is just gone. And so but I kind of like it. I feel like you've earned it at a point. And I do love how constrained the game is at the beginning.
Right.
It's a manufactured progression, right? Like they just added a constraint onto you,
right,
to make you feel like you're progressing more as it goes on. But it works. I guess like a lantern in a mine is something that you could practically see as a limitation, and so it's not that sad. But yeah, I really like that. By the end of the game, the areas are hard enough.
Yes.
So where like I'm dying from combat and from like how nasty the environment is, where it's not like it's a breeze. It's not like I'm not scared or not threatened as I'm flying through it.
Sure. And I think you touched on how I ultimately felt about it is that was sort of the compromise that they made, where it's like, we're going to give you areas where you're going to be dealing with more environmental hazards, where you're going to be dealing with barrels or lasers or whatever it is, and the enemies are going to be more complex. They're throwing things at you. Well, actually, I'm probably getting SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2 mixed up. But anyway, the enemies are getting more complex and that sort of thing. And so it made sense for me to kind of have these things fade into the background.
Yeah.
I think the only reason that I bring it up is because the game was so short. It didn't feel like a very gradual shift. It just was sort of a point where I was dealing with it, and now I'm no longer dealing with it. And I think it just speaks to how much I was enjoying the game, where it's like, man, I could almost see this being another 4 hours long, still being a really tight, focused, lean game, and have that progression just be stretched out a little bit more to be even more satisfying than it currently is.
Sure.
And the way they set up SteamWorld Dig 3 and just the implications there could be really, really exciting.
I don't know that they set up a SteamWorld Dig 3. I think they're setting up SteamWorld Heist.
No, I think...
They did say they don't want to do another Dig game.
Okay.
That this is the...
Well, then I'm speaking out of turn.
The perfect implementation of Dig. But I think it's something in between. I think like it'll be SteamWorld blank. I don't think it'll go back to Heist. Do you, Blood?
No, I think that it's...
Oh, they're just bridging the gap.
Bridging a gap,
Gotcha.
That's the connection.
I have not played SteamWorld Heist.
I haven't either, so...
SteamWorld Heist takes place far future from the Dig games.
Have you played Heist?
Yep.
Did you finish Heist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it, as somebody who is very emotionally attached to SteamWorld right now?
It's so different, but I think you'll still like it because it's still a good game.
Okay.
It's a turn-based strategy game.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, okay.
I know the genre of it. I just haven't played through it. And
Yeah. It's incredibly different.
Yeah.
But it's a good team, and so it's a good game in its own way. It's cool.
I feel like SteamWorld Dig 2 came out at this time where there were so many things to pay attention to, and I know that it reviewed well, and I know the people that have played it have talked about it. But there's another game on this list where it's just like, listen, it's January right now.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't quite gotten to the huge things. It's not very long. This was a game that I think even I was undervaluing, and it's a weird thing. It's like a weird phenomenon, and I'm sure both of you experience it, where it's like people keep telling you that it's good, and in your brain you've sort of like mentally slotted, this is a good game and I'll get to it when I can.
Yeah.
And then when you play it, that kind of rush of emotion comes, and you it's beyond that like mental slot that you assign to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what SteamWorld Dig 2 is.
Sure. I get that.
Yeah, because it does feel like a somewhat simple Metroidvania. Well, I mean, and depending on what you look at, it also sort of has, with like clicking on tiles and getting the loot and stuff. Like it doesn't feel as significant as it is, like if you just watch like a video of it or something,
Sure.
But I do, going back to what you're saying with the progression system, like, I do kind of agree with you that like there's probably like 3 or 4 too many upgrades in there somewhere. Like the one I complained about in the review was the one where like you heal up just from being underwater.
Oh, sure.
And it like basically makes you invincible underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I did feel at the end that like I was a bit too overpowered, but it's weird because at the same time, like you are just sort of running around the map trying to figure out what the heck you missed to get to the last challenge area, which is so hard that you pretty much give up at that point. It's like, oh, I found it. Oh, I don't think I'm gonna finish it. So.
Oh, do you mean post game?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
If you get all the upgrades, then there's another thing.
That is very good news. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Because I was just going to say, you were talking about the being in the water and having that heal you. Just you can get so much health, just flat out health, that the damage enemies is doing to you feels almost inconsequential. Where like you can kind of just tank your way through most of the challenges it presents and then go and heal up, and it's no big deal. But if you are interested in playing SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2 and having both of those, I would definitely recommend playing 1 first. It just felt like that process of progression that I was talking about, where all of the areas felt dramatically different and exciting, and they were kind of slowly building on top of each other. In 1, the way that they introduced the challenge isn't quite as interesting, where it's like, okay, yes, they're throwing new enemies in, but the environments aren't that much more complex or interesting. They just look a little bit different with harder enemies. And so I kind of felt more of this like sameness from beginning to end in SteamWorld Dig 1 that I didn't get with
2 I think is actually intent on building a world, where 1 is more of a mechanical thing,
right,
where it reveals that there's more than you thought there was.
Right. Last question about SteamWorld Dig.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw people on the internet getting mad about SteamWorld Dig being classified as a Metroidvania. I think there are obvious and accurate comparisons to that, but kind of what I was talking about mentally assigning a thing a space. It's a natural human thing that we do.
Yeah.
We like to categorize. We like to put things in their proper bins. Do you think that classification, do you think that the comparison to Metroidvania for a lot of people is just like, oh, it's another one of those, I like it, I'll get around to it? Do you think that classification does it a disservice?
It's an accurate classification, but what happened is there's a lot of Metroidvanias. There's a lot of indie Metroidvanias where you can't progress until this next space until you backtrack and get that thing that allows you to go to that next space, where you'll find more locked doors and you got to find unique looking keys and disguised as abilities. So yeah, that is why I think it's unfair. But like Metroid is so good and Castlevania is so good that Metroidvania should not be a bad word. And so like it is a Metroidvania game, and it's a very good one.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of it just is how natural they make that kind of thing happen. Like if you come across this thing Well, I mean, I guess you can actually use Metroid as an example of ways this can be done wrong in a way. But if you come across the yellow door and it's like, oh, I don't have the yellow thing yet, and it's like, oh, I need the purple. Like a lot of games just kind of do that. Whereas I think even like Metroid has sort of evolved out of that to a degree. But I think like when those are more interesting is when it's things that you didn't think of. When it's like you don't realize that thing you've been seeing over and over again is actually something that you can progress through, something that you can interact with.
In SteamWorld Dig 2, it's hard to predict you're going to get a grappling hook.
Right.
And then once you have the grappling hook, it's hard to realize how useful that will be until you're swinging around and it's like, oh,
right.
Yeah.
This changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yes.
And that's not the last thing that you get that dramatically changes
exactly, yeah.
how you move through that environment.
Yeah.
So is it the problem that we just use that word too much and too incorrectly a lot of times?
I don't know, because I feel like it should be like FPS. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so if somebody says I'm making a Metroidvania game, like that should just register to us like I'm making an FPS. And so it's like, okay, now tell me more.
Yeah. This is... When you say FPS,
yeah,
it was something I think kind of, especially at the start of and throughout the 360 area, that was a term that I heard all the time.
Yeah.
But when we talk about shooters now, when we're on the show, we don't say, oh, it's an FPS and then go on to explain it. I think it's just kind of been submerged into a natural understanding. Like, you don't have to say it's an FPS because it's so obvious and there are so many of these that it's an FPS.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even really categorize it the same way anymore. Do you think we'll eventually get to that point with Metroidvania, or is that specific enough where it probably won't happen?
And the problem is Metroidvania is a dumb word. And it shouldn't be the word that we use to describe these things, but we don't have a good word for it because the word that we had before was adventure game, and adventure game meant two different things, two different completely genres.
Action adventure.
yeah.
Right.
And action adventure is a whole, it's like, like a million things are action adventures. So it's language. It's
Ben,
language in a developing industry.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm way cool with it. I'm really cool with Metroidvania.
Okay. I am too.
I think it's like a good descriptor. You know exactly what type of game, you know the frame, and then you know where to deviate from when explaining it.
Kyle,
Yes.
talk to me about Hollow Knight.
It's a Metroidvania game. And it's a Metroidvania game with just it had a big glass of Bloodborne for breakfast. And
it down.
Yep, it's because the reason why this is a really good transition, Ben, because the reason why I hadn't played it, even when you did a don't skip, and it's like, all right, it's a Metroidvania game, I get it. I get what I'm gonna be in caves as a little Hollow Knight. Like, I get what this game is. And I didn't get it completely. You said enough for me to be intrigued. Right. Over Christmas break, I'm like, all right, all I have is my laptop, so what am I going to play? And like Hollow Knight I'm like, okay, I can run Hollow Knight. Turns out I can't even run that well. But Hollow Knight is very good in ways I didn't expect it to be very good. It's lore heavy. Every element of this game ties into lore. It's crazy like that. But it all feels important. It's all unique in its own way. The art style is so unique. We praise Cuphead for its hand-drawn animation a lot, and it obviously deserves it. This game's hand-drawn animation is insane. It's so good. Every enemy is so well animated, so unique to this game. You know that came from Hollow Knight.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And just the environments. One thing I hate about Super Metroid today is just how it's boxes. Everything is just a cube. And when we were talking about Metroid Samus Returns, it's like, it's all still boxes. I'm still like doing little puzzles with boxes. And so I love that even though this is a grid-based game, they hide the boxes. You know what I mean? And so like it just means something for an environment to look more organic. And all the places it goes are so surprising. I thought I would just be in dank caves the entire time, and this game has more to show me than dank caves.
You were talking about the lore, and how do you feel how well is that lore presented, and did you feel like you kind of could easily follow along as you were going through the game?
Oh, it's that, Ben. It's the Souls type of lore where you can read into it if you want to, and it's like it rewards you if you want to. It's all interesting things if you want to read into the lore. But beyond that, beyond like reading into it, beyond going online and like researching videos about like who did what when, it just adds to the environment you're exploring through. You feel like this is a place that has meaning in each new environment you go to. There's a history here, and so even from just like a raw gameplay aspect, it makes you care more about each level that you're hopping through. And so I love that kind of thing. I love the thought that was put into a super small team, by the way.
Yeah. Everything that you're saying about the world building is completely spot on for me. And we just thinking about 2017 as a whole, just how a lot of these games have presented their worlds. There's a small list where I'm like, this is how you do world building in a video game that is really, really smart. Hollow Knight is absolutely on that list, but I don't think Hollow Knight would feel as special to me if it wasn't for the way that it used its mechanics and how those mechanics specifically make that Metroidvania style more exciting. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's overvaluing those mechanics? Do you think it's not that unique? Or how did you feel about it, and what are those mechanics?
What are the mechanics of Hollow Knight?
Yeah. What are the central mechanics, I guess?
Okay, so, I mean, combat. Combat is a central mechanic of Hollow Knight in that you have a blade.
Yeah, a nail.
You have a nail, exactly. Yeah. But as you progress, you have charms that... This is weird. This is something that I had to look up. Turns out the charms are the wishes of dead bugs. Manifested into little things that you can wear that like enhance your abilities, and just like any game, you're limited to how many that you can like put on at a time.
Right.
But this is where you get builds, and so you like make a build for your character, and so any location is perilous. Any location you're going into, it's got a Souls-esque thing where if you die, you lose all the money that you had saved up.
Right.
That happened to me early, when I had a lot of souls saved up, and it hurt both times that it never happened again.
Right.
It hurts so bad to be that Souls-esque, that Bloodborne anxiety of being deep into a new area, knowing it's been a long time since you found a save spot. I gotta find a new one. I gotta find a bench to sit upon. Where am I gonna find one? And you don't, and you die, and you're so hurt, you're so crushed. But that means something. That crush, means more the next time you're in an environment. When you are in a new environment, you remember how much that hurt that last time, and so you're moving through cautiously. You're being more observant, and like that's kind of the mechanic, Ben. Is it's like you wouldn't call it a 2D platformer because you're not jumping through as fast as you possibly can.
Right.
And so that's why it is a Metroidvania game to me.
I think specifically the healing is what was so fascinating to me about Hollow Knight, because you think about something like a Super Metroid where you're fighting a boss, right? And in SteamWorld Dig, it's good that we're talking about these games back to back, because in SteamWorld Dig, you'll kill an enemy or something will happen, and it's like, oh, there's that health I need. There's that water I need to refill my weapons or whatever it is. In Hollow Knight, the way that it works is as you hit enemies, you're essentially building up a gauge, and then you hold down a button to heal, but that healing takes what feels like a long time when you're in the thick of a fight, and you can't move while you're doing it. And so both with regular enemies, but obviously especially with bosses, figuring out when to heal in that attack pattern just adds this other layer that wouldn't be there at all if it was just like, oh, okay, I can destroy these things and get that health pickup. Yeah. And that is just such a cool mechanic to me that made the fighting a lot more interesting. Where, because I feel like with Metroidvania games, and maybe this isn't true, maybe this isn't fair, but I feel like with Metroidvania games, when you think about boss battles, it's not so much a question of dexterity. Obviously, sometimes it is. There are fights that you can think of that fit that build. It's more of like, how do I hurt this thing?
Yes.
Whereas in Hollow Knight, I feel like it's, how do I hurt this thing, and how do I attack it and heal myself? Where do I find those slivers of space?
Yeah, and they're my kind of boss fights, Ben, when it's like against Soul style, but also Mega Man style. We'll do that for this case.
That's a good one.
Where they don't have iframes, I mean, you can just they do, but they do have iframes. Excuse me. They don't have moments of invulnerability where you have to wait for them to become vulnerable. Right. It's not like those kind of fights. When it is a boss fight, it's like, well, you and I are doing battle right now. I'm open, you're open, and let's fight. And I just love that kind of boss fight. I like that kind of thing. And you're right. You're thinking about the opponents. There are some later ones where you can, if you have the right loadout, you can just tank them. That's like a criticism, is that like some boss fights, it comes down to just the easiest path for me was just equipping my strongest armor and my strongest weapon and then just sitting in front of him and hitting attack. And that's a bummer because the ones where you learn to dodge are so fun.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, in Mega Man, I'm getting stomped on in every boss fight. I'm always getting hit. But in this one, it's got an air dash, where like just the act of dodging is I can handle it. I can handle the reads. There's some bosses later on that I can't handle. But there's one boss. There's an optional boss that is just, sorry, dude, I won't put the time in. But there's just so many other points where just like, and maybe not even bosses, just like the random enemies you run into. It's fun to dodge. It's fun to find the openings that are created naturally. You could mash through them, but it's cool to be a Hollow Knight.
So you talking about the tanky moments kind of taking away from that feeling of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Sometimes in games, what the feeling that I get that kind of supplants that and makes me feel okay about it for being cheesy is if I had to work really hard to get that
and I
cheese.
did. And you're right.
If you had to like go and get a bunch of currency and you had to be really frugal and you had to explore really thoroughly, then it's like, okay, you insane person, you just did so much that you cashed in hard, and we have to give you something for that, and so it's going to be really effective.
And here's something I really like is the charms that are unique upgrades. They are in like context-aware areas, and so you're like, if you want to get this thing that would like upgrade your magic, it's in this area where it would make sense for that thing to have been dropped, and the way the path that you travel down and the things that you see in that environment in those caves, and you know I love caves.
I didn't know that, but
okay, love caves.
Loves caves.
Just like you're into this cave and then you see these enemies and it's like, oh, this is the kind of thing that they would leave behind. That totally makes sense. And so you're right, it is rewarding to take that thing into a battle and be wearing that and doing better because you were willing to explore. Yeah, I get that.
So I did that don't skip on Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
And Hollow Knight was one of those games where I still have a lot of Hollow Knight to play, but I feel like so many of its good qualities were pretty immediately apparent, and I'm excited and even more motivated just hearing you talk about it to just get through it, to make sure that we can talk about it when we get to Game of the Year awards. The whole reason for that is having just come off of SteamWorld Dig 2 and being very impressed by that.
Yeah.
And you've played through both.
Yeah.
Which one left a stronger impression on you?
Hollow Knight. Okay. Easily. Yeah, I think it's going to make my top 5.
Okay.
When we're talking about goaties, like I think it's that level. The difference to me is the lore. You know what I mean? It is the environments.
Okay.
It's the size of the character on the screen. It's the animations. SteamWorld Dig 2 is very good, but I love the world and story of Hollow Knight.
Blood, kind of a slightly different direction from just talking about Hollow Knight. You're being a champion right now. I want to say that, first and foremost, because you're trying as much as you can to play through Persona 5 before we get to Game of the Year awards, and you're in a very
at the expense of all the other games that I could be playing. But I feel like that's the more important one for me to try to get through. Yeah,
that is the nature of my question. In fact, where you're playing through all of Persona, or trying to play through all of Persona 5 on a very truncated schedule. When it comes down to this sort of weird time that we've carved out for ourselves, where we're trying to catch up, where we're trying to, button everything up and play through as much as we can so we can have the most well-rounded discussions. I have my own method for trying to deal with it, but I'm curious, how are you prioritizing things? What is that method like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point I'm not worried about all of the different outcomes and potentially left field things and stuff. It's just like I kind of know where the front runners stand, and so like I feel like I need to hit those front runners, and so I can have like an opinion on those things rather than just like go back and so it's like okay, like I haven't played Wolfenstein or Assassin's Creed or Hollow Knight all the way through, or Uncharted, but it's like like those aren't going to be the games that we pick for Game of the Year. I can feel pretty confident in saying that, and so I think Persona 5 could be a game that we pick for Game of the Year. So it's like, okay, I need to try to play through as much of Persona 5 as I possibly can.
Sure. I'm worried about those discussions. Like worried and excited, really, and I mean that in equal measure.
Yeah.
Like it's always fun to fight to the death for something against somebody else who is fighting to the death for a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But man,
Damiani even is playing through this game right now.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't.
The problem is you can't we can't all play everything every year. Like it's just
Right, you
not
can't.
it's not a
You-
thing that we can do. So
believe me, it's a
the
hard
thing
thing
is
to
it's
accept.
like we are always kind of trusting each other. It's like, okay, you got this quadrant over here, and then okay, you played this and that, and then you played this and that, and it's like, okay, where does this all kind of work itself out?
It's funny that you mention the trusting each other because I feel like this happens every game of the year where we have to trust each other. Where it's like, okay, this person reviewed that game, they said it was good. Okay, cool. I can't do it right now, but I'm glad that they said it was good. Thumbs up. At Game of the Year, you always have those moments, and they're not truly vicious, but it's always like, you said this was good, and I played through it, and I thought it was crap. And you have that this sort of like, what I believed in wasn't true.
Yeah. Well, the belief that I like that Blood is talking about is that we had like preliminary discussions, and we had some people say Persona 5 is really my game of the year right now.
Yeah.
And so Blood's playing it because of that discussion. You know what I mean? So that's what I like about that.
Where are you saying that he's respecting their picks?
Yes.
Essentially?
Yeah. Sometimes it can be too much respect. Like, what didn't we like nominate that weird puzzle game that Ian liked for Game of the Year one year? What's that one called?
Oh, the Talos Principle?
Talos Principle. Like, okay, Talos Principle. Like, we were being a little too respectful to Ian in that moment, I think.
Well, don't you think that came out of, like, Ian really believing it and then us not putting the time into it? And
exactly.
So
that was it. That was like too much trust. It's like, we believe in Ian so
well,
much.
why
I
is
played
that
quite a
too-
bit of it too, though.
Okay.
Why is that too much trust if we don't have the evidence to back it up?
Because, that's the thing is like, it's... This is a complicated issue.
This is a complicated issue.
Yes,
We're prying this open right in the middle of this podcast.
So, like, we all should have played Talos Principle. We all should have said, oh, Ian believes... I think that's why we're deep into January before our Game of the Years.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. Talos Principle also was like it came out like right when those last discussions were happening.
It was a bad time.
Last Guardian last year. Maybe you all trusted us too much.
Maybe. Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, well, there's also the fact that you and Ian are both probably the biggest oddballs, curveballs, whatever.
Sure.
Like wild cards.
Take it.
Because it's like
Too much trust.
I think it's Damiani.
Too much
but
trust.
It's all right. Exactly. It's too much trust. Too much trust.
I want that to come up. I want that phrase. Just somebody,
much trust.
somebody makes an impassioned rant and you just go, too much
No,
trust.
that's our
much trust.
Our solution to too much trust this year is having our awards in deep January.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it.
I actually I feel so much better going into next week knowing that we have this extra time. I really do.
Yeah. And that's why it's cool, Bloodworth is playing Persona 5 right now.
Yeah.
No too much trust this year. He's like, okay, now I'll know for myself.
Right. And he will know. Look at that. He knows already.
I don't know already, actually. Yeah.
Wait, how deep are you? How deep are you?
A little over 50 hours.
And you still don't know? And you still don't know?
No, because it's like it unwraps itself with new things that you really
It does do that, Kyle.
don't expect.
It does do that. There's surprises right up to the end, Kyle.
I've been dipping into Damiani's streams. I've been checking on those surprises. That's fun. Yeah.
All right. Kyle, you
Yeah.
said the forbidden word today. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, you did. The demons got really excited about it because it fits their theme.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas about what that was?
Shrek.
No. They're
That's a good one, though.
All right. First of all, we need to make some things clear that I thought were
Okay.
obvious.
Sure.
Thought they were obvious. Classier sort, these demons, than depict something like Shrek. That is beyond their level of taste, okay? Not gonna pick Shrek. Not gonna happen. Obviously, it plays to the crowd. Not that kind of people.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
The phrase rather was the reeds.
The reeds.
The reeds.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the demons are fighting game fans.
No, they hate fighting games.
Oh, okay.
No, now I'm just being intentionally confusing.
Okay.
No.
So they do.
That was the implication.
The demons do love fighting games. That's why they do frame traps and everything.
Yep.
I get it. Okay.
They enjoy the occasional fighting game.
Uh-huh.
That is where they're at.
Got it.
These demons.
And that's why they set off on the reeds.
Set off on the reeds.
Got it.
They thought it was a classy pick.
Okay.
They also have to pick something.
They got to pick something.
They got to pick something. Okay. So today I want to tell you what this is and what we're doing before we kind of get into the thrust of it. Caught in a Frame Trap is a fun little game that we do to kind of break up the pace, to kind of get away from the intense discussions about games or whatever we're talking about, and just have a little bit of a fun time. Sometimes it's multiple choice, sometimes it's true false. Today it is yes or no.
Ooh,
is
I like
what we're
those.
doing.
Okay.
So what it is I will give you a game series, and I want you to tell me yes or no if there has been some sort of movie made about this game series. Not necessarily, but also including live action, anime, all of the above. If there's been some sort of quote unquote feature length thing for this game
Even
series.
documentaries.
No, not
okay.
documentaries about games. It
Okay.
has to be a story told either inspired by or set within this video game universe.
Okay.
So those are the rules. And I hope that I got all these right. As always, if I got anything wrong, of course, audience, feel free to correct me. But to give you the amount of time that you need to answer these questions to the best of your ability, we have some sponsors that are buying us some time.
Oh, thank goodness.
Buying
Okay.
us some time
Okay.
in the Frame Trap realm. Our first sponsor today is Greg, TheDarkKnight Kettering.
Nice.
Just a cool dude. Cool name. Our second sponsor, with brand new copy, which I always like, is Elsewhere Presents Sonic the Podcast. It's gearing up for season 2. So it's your chance to catch up with our first 10 episodes and learn to love Sonic along with host and co-founder of the Elsewhere software company, Griff Newcastle. Learn to love Sonic, live Sonic, experience Sonic, be like Sonic forever. Some say you can't smell in your own dreams. Then how else will we one day smell Sonic? Anyway, there's art for each episode as well. In fact, I'm going to flash some art on the screen right now. Imagine these images as sound, and that'll give you an idea of what the show is like. If you can't see the images, perhaps you'll never know. Go to elsewhereshows.com and follow us on Twitter at elsewherepodcast to enter a better dimension and glory to the Frame Trap demons. Our next sponsor, it's good that you're on the show, Kyle. I was supposed to read this last time, but did not include it. But it's even better that I'm including it now because it's directed toward you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Our next sponsor is Nate Kiellach, also known on Twitch as Smoalgate. Nate would like to point out that Ace Combat Assault Horizon is, in fact, a good Ace Combat game and is possibly the best soundtrack in the series. Anyone who disagrees with this can direct their angry tweets, memes, and Mr. Mime JPEGs of disagreement to @KyleBossman. So, there's that. Our next sponsor is Zen Market. Based in Osaka, Japan, Zen Market is a shopping proxy service that has been helping people get stuff from Japan since 2014. There are a handful of places online to buy marked up Japanese imports, but with Zen Market, you can go to the source and buy new and used goods directly from Japanese online stores. Additionally, you can bid in real time on Yahoo Auctions, Japan's biggest and busiest auction site. Find Japan-exclusive games, consoles, anime, toys, amiibo, figures, clothing, accessories, and whatever else you want. Zen Market staff can even help you search for the more elusive items on your list. The only fee is a 300 yen charge per item purchased. And that's it. There is no commission based on the price of goods. You can shop, manage your purchases, consolidate items, and organize international shipping right from your account on Zen Market's website. New signups will receive a 300 yen credit, so your first purchase skips the service fee altogether. Sign up for a free account on zenmarket.jp and start browsing Japanese stores today. And I believe those are all of our sponsors. So it's time to get started with the game.
Ben, I gotta say, by the way,
Yeah.
those are some good sponsors.
Yeah. Yeah. They are good sponsors. You know what I like about our sponsors is we got a good mix. We got just, people. We got actually crazy interesting podcast that you can check out, and a service that I would actually use.
Yeah.
Doing all the things.
That's
There's
cool.
no way to say that without sounding like kind of a scumbag, I think.
Oh,
So
sure.
you just gotta accept it.
Yeah.
But I do believe that. I do believe that. Kyle, kind of exciting for you and for me. Normally, I think when you've done kind of frame trap, it's always been multiple choice.
Yeah.
We're not doing that this
Yes
time.
or no? I like yes or no's.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, I have a list. I have 3 questions for you. You're gonna have to say yes or no to, and then I'm gonna go to Blood, and he's got his own series of yes or no's that he's gonna answer, and neither one
Oh,
of
so
you
there's
can.
none of that weird like.
Right.
Oh,
No-
Huber said
neither-
it, so it's gotta be true. Yeah.
Right. Neither one of you can influence the other
Give
during
me
their own
blood.
sections.
I want a trade list. Give me Blood's list.
You want to have blood lists?
Yeah, I
we're
want-
calling it audible. Is that what we're doing? You
I want.
That's fine.
No, I want the third option of Blood's list.
Okay, now you're making it complicated.
Yeah.
All right. What do
I
you
feel.
want?
I feel like you stacked the deck against me.
No, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
stack the deck against you.
Yeah.
I did not. No, we can switch the list and it'd be fine.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to switch the list?
I want to switch the list.
All right, fine.
All right.
Not stacking the deck against you. One rule that we are changing is before I would require you to whisper HOTTAKE into the mic before answering.
But it's all for me.
No, it's not all for you.
But I mean, the next 3 questions are all for me. Like we're not competing to answer
It's
first.
just,
Yeah.
there was problems of keeping track of it.
Yeah.
There was questionable things that happened during the game. So all that
Yeah.
I will ask is that you wait until the question is finished before you answer.
Understood.
No need to whisper HOTTAKE.
Yeah.
Kyle, we're going to start with you.
'Kay.
On Blood's list. Okay? Now, the game is going to be tell me yes or no if there's a movie
Yeah.
based on this video game series.
Okay.
Okay. Red Faction.
No.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Yes. Red Faction Origins, a sci-fi movie, May 2011.
Really?
Yeah.
On DVD? Was
Look
that
at-
like
look
direct
at
to
Blood
DVD?
New.
Yeah.
Guess the deck was stacked.
Well, I'm glad you didn't have it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't
yeah.
have that one. Okay.
All right. So no points. No points yet. Let me put your names on my little notepad.
That was
Okay.
with Armageddon, right?
Yeah, it was with Armageddon. Wow. Well, maybe that
Wow.
is that. You never know. You never know. Okay. Ghosts and Goblins.
No.
Correct. 1 point for Kyle.
Ooh, where's that anime?
Legacy of Kain.
This is tricky, Ben, because we did a ton of research on Legacy of Kain for a podcast. When the leaked one showed up, the leaked sequel that didn't make it. However, I don't remember any movies. I don't. I'm gonna say no.
Correct.
Oh, whew.
I feel like it's been optioned or something. Like somebody said they were going to do it and it
Yeah.
never happened. And
man.
That actually happened with a lot of them. There were a lot of potential ones where it's like, they're in the works right now. And I'm like, well, okay, that's confusing. I'm going to try to leave it off. So I try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, remember how many jokes is like, here comes the Monopoly movie.
Right.
Wait till you see the Monopoly movie. They're making one. It's like, didn't happen. Don't worry about
the
it.
Tetris movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot
That's-
of very
That
weird
never
ones.
happened, did it? Or is it still happening?
You know, it's probably still happening, but like it still never will happen, you know? That kind of
I can't
thing.
imagine it.
Blood.
Battleship got made somehow, though.
Battleship was made.
Kyle got 2 points.
'Kay.
You're going to be using his list. To beat him, you'll need to get all 3
Yeah,
correct.
that's a tough
Yeah.
tough order.
All right. Contra.
No.
Correct. I
Wouldn't
feel
be.
like that one's a nice, tricky one.
That's a nice, tricky one.
Yeah. Dungeon Siege.
I'm not even sure. There's so many games with dungeon in the title. I'm like, wait, what the heck even?
Chocobo's Dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, there are games now that are just called dungeons. I'm like, really? Okay. I'm gonna go with no.
Incorrect. There is a Dungeon Siege movie, In the Name of the King, A Dungeon Siege Tale, directed by Uwe Boll, 2008.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, Ben. That was a good
2008.
tricky one.
It's a tricky one.
All right, do or die,
I mean,
blood.
like, the connection seems loose. I will give you that.
Oh,
Oh,
of
even like
course.
with Postal. Or, yeah.
Last one, Ninja Gaiden.
Yes.
Correct.
Oh.
Ninja Ryukenden, a 1991 OVA. That title translates to supposedly Ninja of the Dragon Sword.
We got to see that.
We should see that.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
That's pretty
Okay,
nuts.
It is
So
on YouTube.
that's a strange era for it to have happened. Because that's after the NES games.
I think, based on the research that I did, I believe that it is set after the NES trilogy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It seemed cool. It seemed interesting. I would like to watch it. It's not very
There's a gigantic gap between those NES games and the Xbox game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we have the best possible situation.
Mm-hmm.
Where both of you tied. But before we get to the end here,
Uh-huh.
I want to ask you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Blood was answering your list.
I would have failed I would have failed on my list.
So you think the deck was stacked?
So I don't think it was stacked. I do think I would have gotten Dungeon Siege because it's like, why would he pick Dungeon Siege if it wasn't a movie? But
Sure.
I would have said no to Ninja Gaiden, so I would have, I think, done the same in the end.
That's the tough thing about making these little games.
Yeah.
Is you never want it to be what you just described.
Yeah.
You never want it to be like, well, why else would he pick this?
Yeah.
And that you.
That's why Contra was so good.
Yeah,
Contra was a
it's
really good
it's
one.
kind of unavoidable. But anyway, to get us out of the frame trap round,
Yeah.
you will both have to work together with either a phrase or some sort of gesture
Yeah.
to break us out of the frame trap realm. Because you tied, the additional requirement is that it is done together in some way, either simultaneously or.
I just had an idea. I had an idea.
He's got it. He's all ready to go.
Blood, I want to hack a hole into the demon realm, and I need you to shoot your beam through the hole in that exact moment. We have basically half a second for you to pull this off. Do you think you're coordinated enough for this to happen?
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm hacking in.
Okay.
Okay, they're tracking me. Okay, Blood, I'm getting in. Start charging your laser.
All right.
Okay, I'm into the mainframe. Blood, give me 5 more seconds, Blood. Oh, they're on my tail. Oh, they're on my tail, Blood. I'm getting deeper. Blood, it's open now. It's open now.
Threat eliminated. An easy thing to throw around, but I think this will stay true, at least for right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite one.
Whoa.
That's my favorite one. Good job, guys. Great job. Blood, you've got a game that, before we started this podcast, you weren't sure how to describe, and that is Gorogoa.
Mm.
I'm not sure if I want to describe. That's
Right.
That's the trick.
Right. And so you were trying to figure out a way to like talk about this game without ruining it.
Yeah.
What have you come up with?
Yeah, because I've used this example with some of you asking if you should play it, and I feel like it's sort of in a way like how Unfinished Swan just kind of like gives you a white screen and like waits for you to push a button.
Mm-hmm.
And so so we're talking about Gorogoa, and I feel it's very similar to where it's like you're just looking at this art, and then you realize like, oh, I actually have to do something now. Like it's pretty much on you to start looking at it, start pushing buttons and figuring out what you can do with this. And so yeah, it is. Without like necessarily ruining too many of the mechanics or anything, like it's a hand-drawn puzzle game, and where you're looking at these scenes and you're trying to figure out exactly how to interact with these scenes and what you're supposed to do to progress, to move things forward, and it shifts things around a lot, and there's like a lot of there's things going on in the background. You see different characters, and you're not sure, like, are you seeing different characters? Are you seeing the same character? Like, there's some kind of a story there that I think Ian played it like twice in a row when he streamed it, because it's like he figured out the game and he played through the game, and then I think probably what happened is like, okay, but there was a story while I was doing all of that. What was that about? And so he like immediately like played through it again to try to figure out what he could on that end.
See, that's interesting because my initial reaction to that is it seems like he kind of vaguely got the sense that there was the story, but had no understanding of what it was. And so I wonder how much the second playthrough helped him, specifically looking for that, and like if the story was worth that effort, I guess. Like, were you getting a sense of some sort of story? Did you follow anything? Does it even matter?
I don't think it matters that much. But I think it's one of those things where, you know, as Kyle was saying with Hollow Knight, it's like there's more to kind of investigate and theorize on, like if you want to go into that, you know. And to me, like I didn't feel like the need to do that. Like I didn't feel the need to necessarily figure that much of it out, because I was really satisfied with the mechanical and artistic level. I mean, it's a beautiful looking game. And I read a Kotaku article where it's like, this is basically a one-man game from a guy who doesn't make video games, who decided, he can draw, and he wanted to make this game, and he had this idea, and I think they even said like Gorogoa was like something from his childhood, like this imaginary creature that he had always kind of sort of had, like something that's been in his mind for his whole life.
So Gorogoa is not a word that I should know what that means.
Right.
That's a made-up word.
Yeah.
Okay. That feels good.
So we were talking about Hollow Knight, now we're talking about Gorogoa, and we were talking about Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And something that I think should be considered when we're talking about narrative is not just literally what is the best story, like what can we describe to you that gave us the biggest impact, but more of like what is the best sort of, I don't know if lore is the right word, but consistency, because to me it's just as valuable that the creator thought everything through, and that makes for a more cohesive world, even if I can't tell you, okay, this is the exact story of this game, here's the history of this place. Like, not that stuff isn't important, it is important, but what's more important is that it all makes sense just kind of being in it.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know what you would give for a category like that, because I feel like something like Best World is a little misleading.
Oh, yeah.
But it's things like that I think, like, the really important, subtle details that, like, awards don't necessarily pick up on.
Didn't Giant Bomb do Best World this year?
I don't know.
They might have done Best
I know they
World.
do, like, Best Style.
Okay. We're not calling out Giant Bomb, just to be clear. Ben, I think it enhances games. It'd be something I'd feel uncomfortable with awarding on its own. On its own. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it gets into this weird category where it's like, if we all agree that it's important and we all agree that we value it and can recognize it,
yeah,
then why aren't we calling it out?
Because I feel like Game of the Year should exhibit these things, and they do.
I
Persona
see.
5 exhibits this. Because Persona 5's world matters.
You can't get there unless you have this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
buy
mean,
that.
PUBG doesn't have lore, obviously, but it's thematically consistent. You know, I don't know. It is weird. Yeah, I don't know. It is.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is like you're talking about consistency, but like one of the things that's very interesting and magical about this and a lot of other games is that, is it connects things that otherwise don't seem connected. And so it's like, yeah, so if you're too consistent, yeah, it's like PUBG. It's like, well, yeah, you're just on an island. There's just just stuff there, and you pick it up and you shoot. There are certainly some surprises there, but there's surprises more in like how the game mechanic works versus other games. It's like you can't just hop off of a Jeep and start shooting somebody because, oh, no, this game's a little bit more realistic than that you're going to die if you jump out of a moving Jeep.
Cool. Ben, I got it. I think I got what I want to say.
Okay.
Is that I think people put in those details, they put in that lore not to win awards. You know what I mean? Like sound engineers would love to win awards. Other
They've
categories.
got their own awards.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Is that like I think when you're putting in details, when you're adding the lore, it's not for that recognition. It's
Right.
And so I that's why I think it's weird to award that in particular. I think you don't do that so somebody says like, good job with that one thing. Whoever made Gorogoa should be like, hey, you made a great game, and that should be the award. Is how I feel about it.
Yeah, I just always have this sense, I suppose, that these things that you're talking about, like, they're not doing it for the recognition. It's not about that, so it would be weird to award it. It's just, I also think it's always good to push the other direction as well, where it's like, well, if we always try to understand things in the exact same ways and fill these buckets in the exact same ways, then the conversation is never really going to change or get more interesting. Like, we should always be pushing to think about how we're talking about these things.
I agree with that, and it's a way better, more fun conversation than best graphics.
Right. Like,
yeah.
you just saying that.
Yeah.
Like, and the award for best graphics goes to, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gross.
Yes.
But Blood, getting back to Gorogoa, you were talking about how it's connecting things that wouldn't necessarily make sense to be connected on their own. Is it sort of like a witness thing where it is very much a build-like process where it will sort of introduce you to these mechanics, and then you'll go to a different environment and it will be a completely new mechanic, but what you learned in another area is still applicable here? Is it that sort of sense where you're kind of building up this logic in a way?
In a way, but I'd say not as. I don't think it's as abstract as the Witness. Like, it's not. Like, there are definitely parts that will challenge you, but not in the sense that, like, you're gonna, like, rack your brain and just, like, give up on it for the night. Like, I think that most people are yeah, they're gonna sit down and they're gonna get through this game on a first playthrough. But I think it's one of those things where there's definitely enough challenge for it. It's like you do kind of have to observe everything and look at things, and and there's one of the things that you can do is you can zoom in or zoom out on different images, and that's important. And again, it's trying to figure out how it all. Yeah, again, it's trying to figure out how it all connects. Trying to see what if something in one. It's just hard because I'm like trying not to spoil how the mechanics work.
Sure.
But so you're really looking for those things that go together. And there are some aspects of it towards like, okay, well I've done that before, and so I can find something similar to that in this, but it's not exactly the same either. And it's trying to again try to piece it all together. There's sort of an element that feels a bit like a jigsaw puzzle in it.
I think the thing that's most interesting to me, based on what you've tried to describe about Gorogoa without ruining it, which seems very painful, is that like even the comparisons that you're trying to make to other, I guess, puzzle games, or even what you were saying with Influence Fawn, it feels like just such a loose approximation, where it's like, hey, here's this really tight experience that will surprise you in ways that you can't predict, and I can kind of grasp at other things, but there's really nothing else like it.
Right.
So I think that's cool, and it's funny because you're like, hey, this is super short, play it before Game of the Year. It'll be interesting to see how those conversations come out during Game of the Year. Like, do we just talk about the thing at that point? Do we just not worry about spoilers? I don't know.
I think you have to.
Yeah, I think you have to.
I think at that point it's like all spoilers off for all these games.
Sure.
We won't ruin the endings of them, but like you have to talk about games in their entirety.
Yeah.
At that point.
Talking about games, one that I've wanted to feature on the show for a long time and never got around to, but you've played, is Pokemon Ultra Sun or Moon. Which one did you play?
Ultra Moon.
Okay. Tell me about Ultra Moon.
I know it's not HOTTAKE yet.
It's not.
But I got a hot take.
Yeah.
This game is too expensive for what it is.
Okay.
This game is too expensive for what this is.
Kyle, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that is a generally accepted viewpoint.
Oh, okay. So it's not that hot. That's
It's okay.
Lukewarm
it's okay.
take.
It still needs to be said.
Yeah.
Does it feel essentially like sort of the Game of the Year edition, where like
Yeah.
you've got Horizon and included is the Frozen Wilds.
Yeah, it feels like that. Yeah, Blood, and it's got such a cool title. Ultra Moon. There's nothing ultra about this.
Well, you were talking about like a Game of the Year edition.
Yeah.
And I talked to you a long time ago about Ultra Moon.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the problem was that most of what you were doing was exactly the same, and it wasn't worth it to get to those little new bits.
Yeah.
And it seems like the way that you would rather prefer to do it is just access the new bits immediately. Like, it seemed like the point of pain was having to wade through all this stuff that you'd seen before and wasn't that interesting.
Yeah. And Ben, what it was I even like picked it up. I like quit this game 3 times, and now I finally quit it. It's really happened.
How far did you get?
The third, there are 4 islands. I got to the third one.
Okay.
And deep into that too. Basically, I had just had enough of the dumb story.
Are you talking about the dumb story that you had already seen before?
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
dumb story that was new and presented in Ultra Moon?
The dumb story I had seen already before.
Okay.
And it's that, Ben. It's if you're forced to play it a second time in the course of 13 months, you see how bad that was the first time through. It's just what drives you through is Pokemon. What drives you through is your team and wanting to be the best and seeing what these things evolve into. And when that's removed, when it's the same thing again, you see the story for what it is, and it's a story not worth telling. It's a story of people I don't care about, doing things I don't find interesting, and crying about things I don't care for them. And just like, you don't feel sympathy for any of these characters. You don't feel nervous for them. You don't feel a sense of danger. And so like, you're watching a kid's show and you get it. You're like, oh, this is a kid's game. Everyone was right.
Yeah.
And so like, there's almost like nothing under there. And there are pockets of like, oh, that is like actually interesting. There are like the side missions, side scenarios where like truly interesting things happen. But there's just so much dumb to it that I'm not even driven to see what the new stuff at the end is.
Okay. This is really interesting to me because from what I've played of the OG Sun and Moon, which is not all of it, I sort of agree with what you're saying, where I kind of get the sense that they're having you spend time, like these characters are around and things are happening to them, and you are technically going on this journey, but there's not really, I guess, any development. Like there's no pockets of space where it's like, we're going to interact with these people in a natural way. Yeah. It's sort of just like it's happening and there's not the things surrounding them that would make you care. Yeah. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, like, there could be counter arguments where it's like, well, actually that guy turns good, or actually she cuts her hair. It's like, no, that's not development. That's not it. Yeah.
But, and here's the thing that's tripping me up.
Yeah.
When I play Sun and Moon, I think the reason why it doesn't bother me as much is because, like, my pockets of having not, like, I haven't played Black and White, I haven't played Diamond and Pearl, I played like the remakes of Ruby and Sapphire, but I didn't play like the GBA versions. I played a lot of Red and Blue and a lot of Gold and Silver, and so going from that to like Sun and Moon or Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, the fact that those things, even though they're like not well done, the fact that they even have those things is kind of not good, but like interesting. You know what I mean? When you have that big gap of space. And I think that's true for a lot of people with a series like Pokemon. Yes. I think Pokemon for a lot of people is something you drop off for a long time and then come back to, or you follow all the way through. It's just, you have all these people all over the spectrum when it comes to Pokemon. Do you think that muddles the conversation? Do you think that causes people to overvalue things or undervalue things? Like,
Ben,
I don't know.
It's a game 1 year ago I was excited to play through.
But it sounds like you thought it was stupid at the time as well.
I did, but it wasn't, my eyes weren't peeled open until this second playthrough. And so even though I play all of them, there was still that newness to this one, even Ultra Sun or regular Sun and Moon, where it's like, oh, they changed so much. There's no more HMs. That's so cool. When you do an Ultra version a year later, you lose that. Entirely. You lose that, oh, this thing evolves into that cool thing. That's so fun. I'm so glad I didn't look at what everything evolves into. It's cool to like see this thing.
So are you saying that in the initial playthrough, that newness acted like a shield. And now you don't get that shield a second time.
Yeah, you see this story for what it is. And it's an RPG. You have to care about the story. An RPG should care about its own story in most cases. Obviously, there are exceptions and really good exceptions. Right. But in this case, if it's so much of it, I wish when you start this, you could say, I've played the original, no Nebby. And it's like, okay, no Nebby.
Right.
We won't have, there will be no Nebby. We got it. No Nebby in this.
Uh-huh.
Nebby, by the way, is just like, it's an annoying little new Pokemon that's like, Nebby! And it's always like running away. And so Lily's like, Nebby, come back! You slipped out of my bag again! And I can't believe I have to watch that again. Adults can't. An adult cannot watch Lily chase after Nebby 3 times. You can't do it.
I can't wait for I can.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and people do.
Yeah,
and I don't want to pass judgment on those who do because the things in Pokemon are still good. There are still so many good things in Pokemon. Personally, I couldn't do it.
That's a weird thing about it, though, right? Where you take Red and Blue, and I'm not trying to say that there aren't cool structure things about Red and Blue and how it presents this challenge that you're going on. There is simple freedom that you talked about during Hall of Greats.
Yeah.
But I think when you have something like Pokemon, this whole idea of catching more than 100 monsters and raising them and battling them and trading them and having them evolve, like, you're dealing with so much there that, like, I don't know if I could also handle, here's the entire history of this world, page. Like, I think on a certain level it's good to keep it simple.
Yeah.
But now that we've gotten used to that concept, it makes sense that they're trying to introduce other things, but the thing that was already complicated and like mechanically heavy has only gotten more mechanically heavy. So I can imagine designing something like Sun and Moon, where you have this story, you have these different factions at play, you've got your Nebby, while also being like, okay, we have to staple on more new mechanics and like having those merge in like a convincing way. Because we're not just dealing with a battle system, we're dealing with a battle system, a trade system, a social system that has evolved for like well over a decade, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just don't know how you do that, but is that giving them too much credit at the same time?
Yeah, and I want to give them credit for refinements, some things they made simpler in the last one, you know, with taking out HMs and just riding Pokemon. That's a good simplification. A lot of things were simplified, even in like complicated terms of like breeding and like checking your IV levels and EVs and all that. But anyway, Ben, what you just made me think of is we talked about this on Easy Allies podcast about does Game Freak technically have the ability to make the Pokemon Switch game that we're all thinking about? But just this conversation made me realize that, like, I don't know if, like, they can write a good video game. I don't know if they've proven that just writing-wise, just structurally, and not just dialogue, but, like, thinking of a compelling story to tell, I don't know if they've proven they could do that. And I think that's what we want in a Pokemon Switch. Like, what if there's another Lily and Nebby in the next game? I don't mean literally them, but, like, what if there's just another, like, why does your Pokedex have to be your Pokedex is a ghost?
Yeah.
Like, nobody enjoys that. No, that's such like a dumb decision. That same studio is making the next Switch game. They're making the Pokemon Switch game, and so all of that makes me nervous.
It's overcomplicating something that didn't need to be touched.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. But we're talking about that shield, right? That shield, like, it works on me. It works on all of us. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Like, talking about Sun and Moon, it's like, you got like an Ice Sandshrew? That's so cool.
Exactly,
You know,
yes.
that shield is effective where you you have that little thing, the dancing marionettes in front of you that you fall for. Don't you think like Pokemon Switch in one way is just one giant version of that? Where it's like, it's Pokemon on Switch.
And Tangela is made out
shield.
Yeah, and Tangela is made out of candy. You're right. I'll love the game. It's like Candy Tangela. Oh, I gotta play this. Yeah, you're so right, Ben. They have the shield on their side.
That's like maximum shield.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'll play through Pokemon Switch no matter what it is.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Isn't one of the things that kind of slowed me down and kept me from really sticking with Pokemon Sun? Like, isn't there like this whole other menu with like theme parks and like all this stuff? It's like a sub menu that's like introduced right away.
I hate all that stuff. I hate it so much.
Yeah, and like all the beans and
beans, dude. But the beans is weird. The beans is part of the simplifications of like doing your base values of your Pokemon stats and stuff. It is weird, and I was like, yeah, I hate those beans. It's all so unnecessary.
That's the thing. It's like I think even going back to the the games. Was even probably Gold and Silver had berries? Was it berries the Gold and
Yes.
Silver? Or,
Yeah. Berries began in Gold and Silver. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of these systems is just like, I don't know, they don't feel like they're making things complex in more interesting ways. It's just like, I've got more things to manage, and like, I've got a whole bunch of Pokemon to manage already. Why do I need to manage this other thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing that like, it's really kept me from ever like really like fully completing a Pokemon game. It's like,
really just like when they introduce too many things on top of it.
Yeah, it's like I just want to like start moving forward and at the same time catch a whole bunch of Pokemon. But I'm like, I've got, okay, this thing how much should I do that, and how much should I do this thing, and it just gets to be a bit much.
I definitely have that sensation, Blood, and I'm so glad that you bring that up. When I'm playing a new Pokemon game, I think I'm I want so many different things. I kind of want to return to something that I loved so intently at one point, but I don't want it to be exactly the same. I want it to be a little bit new in interesting ways, but there are definitely times in Pokemon where it's like, what is all of this? Like, why is this all happening? But people seem to really like it, so maybe there's more there than I'm giving it credit for. But like, feeding berries all the time and then cleaning them up all the time isn't that fun? Like, it's just like a lot of emotions, and I'm not always sure how to feel. And bouncing off of that sentiment, with a lot of series, you eventually see, once you get way up in the numbers, like, we're going back to the basics. That here's this nostalgic trailer, remember what you used to love kind of thing. Do you think that they could do that with something like a Pokemon Switch, where it's like, hey, all of this stuff, we're taking all of it out, we're making it a lot more basic, but it's on Switch, it's going to look really pretty, it's going to be a good way for people to jump in. Like, would that please people, or would that make them angry?
I think it would please people, right? Like, we saw the response to Pokemon Go.
Right.
That game couldn't be simpler.
Right.
Well, it could. There was some weird stuff. But anyway.
But I mean, the point is true.
Yes. Yeah. If they say, look, we're not doing Megas in this, we're not doing Z moves, I don't think that would not be celebrated. I think that there are people who buy Pokemon every year who are fans who do demand new mechanics. But even they, at this point, I think would just like a refresh. Would like, and look, we'll add more to this as we go forward. But to simplify it would help it so much, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you know, if you didn't have all these extra things to manage, like, you could put that time into, you know, like, I think, like, you know, you're talking about like riding Pokemon and stuff. Like, I think that a Pokemon Switch could have more interesting ways of Pokemon actually interacting with the surroundings.
Yeah.
You know, you could do a lot more on those veins and make the game more interesting that way. And, you know, and that could even potentially, you could play into battle arenas or something that way, you know, to where you maybe have to use multiple Pokemon to set up traps or different situations, you know, and set conditions, you know, rather than
Pokemon traps. Blood.
Oh, I
That's
have to brush my Pokemon's hair because he got ruffled up in that fight.
Don't you think, though, on some level, this is how all these ideas happen? Like, wouldn't this be so cool?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. But is anything cooler than the basic tenets of capturing, battling, finding?
Yeah. The one takeaway I have from this conversation, Ben, is the shield is like, it could be a trash game. The next Pokemon Switch could be trash, and it will sell 10 million.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This has really gotten away from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I apologize for. But I guess my last question to you is, as somebody who's already played Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, this was not worthwhile to you, not worthwhile enough to finish. However, if you're coming at this and you're like, I want to jump into Pokemon, do you think that there's enough there that this makes sense as a new version, or does it like pollute the original Sun and Moon?
I almost think no. So let's say you've never played a Pokemon game before.
Yeah.
You don't have the shield won't work on you.
Right.
So like I think you will see Lily and Nebby for who they are. And so
shams.
Yeah. And so I would not recommend this to somebody coming in new. I would not say, oh yeah, you got to start with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. You're gonna love the graphics. Like I wouldn't say that. Start with this one.
But do you start with Sun and Moon even at that point? Because Nebby's still there.
I got a couple of here's where you start with. You start with Red and Blue, and I realize that's gonna be hard for some people. I realize it looks grody. I realize you don't want to. I think Black and White is also a really good starter.
Okay. I think that's reason you can play that on 3DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
or DS.
I really dig the way that things are introduced in that one. But yeah, I think when it started, those a lot of with like the things that Bloodworth are talking about, the things that he bumps up against, I think are extremely valid, and a lot of those just pop up constantly, and especially like the revisions, like this one's Emerald is like you're adding more things that I don't care about is when you add those things. But people love Emerald, so it's weird. It's it's a very personal thing I'm talking about right now because I know that Pokemon Company is not making wrong decisions because the games just sell well and just sell 20 million copies. So it's not. I don't know. It's my critique as somebody who's playing the games, but it's not my criticism on the company in particular, I guess I would say.
Sure. Moving on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just some interesting things, kind of a change in tone now that I've played through it. So I finished I didn't do the last two like mini bonus 45-minute chapters, but I played through all of the main episodes of Resident Evil Revelations 2 on Switch.
Oh.
Cool pick. Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot that's on Switch. Okay,
Yeah.
that explains that. Cool.
And the Switch version is totally fine for the most part. There are two things that I should note. There were a couple of spots where a lot was happening where the frame rate just tanked and was bad, but it was fine for the most part. However, the loading times, like when you're first getting into the game, loading into the chapter, that takes way longer than it should. And just in general, the loading times, like when you die and you load back in, those things all take way too long. But the way that I felt about Revelations 2 before, the last time I talked about it on Frame Trap, I briefly mentioned that I had finished 2 sections, both Claire and Moira and Barry and the little girl, and I had done 2 of those, and I had done one where I just done half of it, where I had done Claire and Moira. And what I find frustrating now that I finished about Revelations 2 is while its strength is its simplicity, where it's like it's this really nice, hyper-condensed Resident Evil as you know it. If you've played Resident Evil 4, if you've played Resident Evil 5, if you've played Resident Evil 6, if you are attached to those games, this is like a nice shot in the arm, where it's like, I know this, and I don't have to get too invested in it. Like, I can play through one of these episodes in like 2 hours. Both sides, and that feels really good. It's a nice break from whatever you're doing, whether it's work or like huge games, of which there are a lot of this year. It's this nice shot in the arm. Like I shoot the zombies, I can knock them down, I can stab them, I can sneak up behind them. It's just things work as intended. And early on, I thought the ideas that they were doing were not incredible, but like interesting enough. So there are these enemies that you encounter where like your either AI friend or co-op person that you're playing with can be like, oh, okay, the weak point is in there. You have to shoot that point if you want to kill them. And so you switch to them, you find the weak point and you shoot it, and it's like, okay, that's fine. There are invisible enemies that work exactly the same way, where it's like, okay, my partner can sense the invisible enemy. They're going to tell me where to shoot. So I'm going to switch back, and they're going to be like, no, go more to the right. That works well enough, but I think this game's biggest strength is also its huge weakness, because while it's nice to get these concentrated bursts, when you're committing to 4 episodes and you're like, we have to have both perspectives. So you're playing for half the episode, you're playing as Claire and Moira. For the other half, you're playing as Barry and this little girl. When you make yourself commit to that for 4 episodes, you have sections where it's like, this isn't that interesting. There's not that much going on with the story. There's not some huge new mechanical thing going on here. And so there's this, in episode 3, I believe, where you're playing as Barry and the little girl, all it is just basically one section where you're solving this box puzzle. And you go, you kill the enemies, what few enemies there are, you run into like this kind of boss-like figure. You go, you pick up the box, you put it on the conveyor belt, it goes up here, you wash and you just do this whole thing, and there's nothing going on with the story. It's not that intense. You kind of immediately understand what's happening, and then you just go through the process of doing it. And so I think that's the thing that's interesting about this episodic game, and I felt this with even Telltale games, where it's like, why is this episode so weak compared to what came before and what came afterward, is when you sort of commit to, this is what we want to do, but you force yourself to divide it up a certain way, you almost naturally have these spots that are weaker and not as interesting. And so, like, when you go through that first episode, you're like, this is perfect. This makes so much sense. And they're, like, trying to pull you in, so they're building up a lot of that mystery.
Yeah.
But, again, even that doesn't always work because they're building up a lot of this mystery, and then they can't like do the big bombshells like right away, and so you're just kind of waiting for it to pay off, and you just kind of have this sense as you're going through it where you're just kind of meandering a little bit, and so that's not interesting. But that's not the worst part.
Oh, whoa.
The worst part, and maybe I'm just an idiot. I'm totally willing to accept that I'm just an idiot. But there is a part in episode 3. Yeah, it's episode 3 where there is a quote-unquote decision that you will have to make. And this decision will determine whether you get the bad ending, which is what I got.
Yeah.
Versus the good ending. And the good ending is super awesome. You get a whole extra section, a whole extra fight that is not only really, really cool on its own, it is a great homage to other Resident Evil things. Like, if you like Resident Evil, you want to experience this, it's super awesome. However, the decision is not really presented like a decision. It's sort of like happening, and it's a QuickTime event. And as I was going through it, I just was like, oh, it's a QuickTime event. I just got to do the thing. And then I did it. And even the thing that you're doing in the moment, and I don't want to spoil, that's why I'm speaking so vaguely, even the thing that you're doing in the moment doesn't feel wrong. It wasn't until after the fact, after I got the bad ending, and I went, this is falling flat. Is this supposed to be this way? Finding out that there was a whole different ending, and finding out that this thing that didn't seem like that big of a deal in the moment or would be so consequential is in fact the trigger that happened that would have given me the good ending.
I feel like you got to warn people.
Yeah, there's no warning.
No, you. I feel like you have to warn the audience.
Yeah. Like,
what should they know coming into this moment? Like,
okay, so there's a moment in episode 3 where you're playing as Claire and Moira. You will do a boss.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is not even episode 4.
No, that's the thing.
Okay, all right.
That's the thing that's so confusing.
Okay, all right.
Because then you have like the aftertaste, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, I'm gonna go back and do it, and it's like, wait, do I want to go all the way back to the beginning of episode 3, do that, and then 4, have to do the very part that I thought was no good, and then have to do episode 4. No, that's too much ass. It's not like going back and hitting that specific moment. So yeah, it's in episode 3. It's Claire and Moira. It comes after a fight. You will do this QuickTime event. Don't do that QuickTime event.
Oh.
Have the other person go and pick up the gun.
Okay.
And what's so frustrating, Kyle, is this other person going up and picking up the gun makes sense from a narrative standpoint. Like, I kind of understand what they were trying to do, but it's the way that they presented it that feels like none of it makes any sense until you've already done it. Like, you wouldn't naturally arrive at these decisions.
Yeah.
And so I'm just upset. I'm just bitter. I'm salty that I didn't get to experience this cool Resident Evil moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is if you're going to do something that consequential that early in, then you can't have it be a good ending versus bad ending situation.
Right.
Like, you can have different endings, but
Meryl Otacon.
Yeah, like it's just, but to make one just feel like it's flat and the other one is the amazing one, and like that's kind of dumb, you know. I feel kind of like, you know, like when me and Huber like talked about like our endings for The Witcher 3, and I'm like, I can't believe you did that, Huber, and he was like, oh, it's fine, it made sense in my playthrough, you know. And so, yeah, I feel like it's got to be along those lines where it's like it's not better or worse or whatever. It's just like this storyline went a different direction dramatically because of what you did here. But this storyline is also cool. Right,
exactly. And that's totally okay, where it feels like this sort of natural progression, or where even when you're at the end and you realize that the ending is just a reflection of how you played, that's totally fine. But this is very much a like, hey, you didn't understand this completely vague and arbitrary thing. Here is a totally unsatisfactory ending.
Right.
You know, it's not like I made a bunch of poor decisions throughout the 4 episodes that resulted in this. It was this one very unclear, stupid thing. And so what's interesting about Revelations 2 is if you know that going in, your opinion of it, and you avoid it and you get the good ending, your opinion of it will probably be way different than somebody who's just going in blind.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. It's interesting when we talk about this game and what we are trying to dictate, is this game good, is this game bad, versus when it all comes down to, hey, did you know about this part?
Yeah.
I really, I'm, I'm curious and always a little bit concerned about like how something like Detroit is going to handle these kinds of moments. It's like how many things are going to feel like, oh, bad ending. I failed because I didn't understand what the game was communicating to me at this moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Kyle, you brought up Maryland Otacon.
Yeah.
And just a side tangent really quick. So Merrill is like the canon ending to Metal Gear Solid 1. It is the one that is harder to get. It's not the one that I got when I first played Metal Gear Solid.
Yep.
And I eventually went back and did the Merrill ending. I liked the Otacon one more.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to reconcile when you have games that will like go on and create elaborate stories with like an ending that you liked less. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of weird. They're like both canon because both characters survive.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really weird. It's really, honestly, it's like, it's kind of fun in how much it doesn't matter.
Right. I guess even just the sensation of kind of having this like, oh, hey, there's this better ending that you didn't get, or this other ending that you didn't get.
Yeah.
And then like going through and specifically playing again to get that thing and then liking it less.
Yeah.
Because earlier on, like growing up, people would always make a big deal about like this game has however many endings. This game has 2 endings, 5 endings, 12 endings, whatever it is. Like that would be a back of the box thing.
Yeah.
But that's just so not impressive anymore. Like there are other ways to make your games interesting beyond these yes or no moments, these flashpoints, I guess.
And even narratively, it makes more sense for Meryl to die, and you kind of rob us of her death,
right?
If she's just like, "No, I'm okay now. Let's ride off into the sunset and have a weird little romance for a little while."
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Snake's old enough to be her grandpa. He's old enough to be a grandpa, not her grandpa.
I think we've like done it already, but are you with me that the Johnny Merrill stuff in 4 is just awful?
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe it's Huber is the only one who's like buttoned up against that.
Okay, I just want to have like a 30-minute thing where we just talk about how awful.
Yeah, I mean,
someday. Maybe it's not going to happen until like 5 years from now. But someday.
We get to not take it seriously. We get it.
Yeah.
We know we shouldn't be taking it seriously. It's awful despite on top of all that. It's still awful.
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't throw the you don't get it thing. That doesn't fly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
we get
awful.
it. Yep.
It's just awful. All right, we're going to end the gaming conversation with something that I think is really interesting, something that you proposed, Dana Bloodworth, that I like. You're going through the process of listening to video game soundtracks to talk about the best soundtrack of the year. What has that process been like, and what have been the standout soundtracks?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. I tend to just do like 1 or 2 a day, and sometimes like the longer ones, because there's quite a few that are 50 to 80 tracks long or whatever. Like those will spread out across a couple of days. And so sometimes there'll be a bit in the car. Sometimes I'll like. The TV will be on something inconsequential so that my eyes will just look at something. And, other times I'm, like more intently focused. I try not to do like any work or that much chatting. Like maybe I'll like throw out a comment or something here and there, like about what I'm listening to, but try to actually be listening to the soundtracks. And so it's been good. It's been interesting. I mean, the past couple of years, I feel like I haven't had as much time. I haven't given as much time as I should throughout the year. I wish I would be doing that more, rather than just trying to catch up at everything at the end of the year. But it's been good.
That way about a lot of things.
It's been, there's definitely surprises here and there, and then some of the surprises are the things that like I was really looking forward to. I'm like, I'm like not that into this, and it's kind of strange. Like I've been having that issue with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 soundtrack, where it was like interesting. Like this is good. I can recognize that this is good, but none of this, and it's better. I like it better than the X soundtrack for sure. Mm-hmm. But like none of this stuff is like really like grabbing me in the same way, Whereas with the first Xenoblade, like I listened to that soundtrack a lot before I ever played that game. I didn't play that game until like 2 years later or something.
So the way that I heard the soundtracks for both those games is while I was playing them,
right?
And that was something that Damiani also expressed, where he was listening to the 2 soundtrack before he played the game, and he's like, I like it, but ones resonated with me more. And I haven't listened to them back to back, so maybe I would fall into the camp where I liked one more. But as I was going through too, there were several moments where I'm like, oh man, the music is really good here. And was definitely living up to my expectations of what I've heard in one. And so I wonder if part of it is just listening to it outside first.
Sure. I mean, it can be. Definitely like this process is kind of a weird way of going about it because the difficulty is, like also measuring like the implementation of that, like if you don't get a chance to necessarily play through all the different games. And even if you have, it's not like, I can go back to that moment in Zelda, 50 hours into my playthrough and remember exactly how that went down.
Right.
So it's, games and soundtracks. Oh, and the other difficulty with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in particular is that they haven't put out a soundtrack aside from like things like a dozen songs or something that's on the like Ultimate Edition sampler, when there's just like so much more music in that game. And so like I've just had to listen to somewhat amateurish like rips from the game on YouTube or whatever. And it was like before, it's like he's like, no, I had like a full 4-disc soundtrack to listen to.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's weird too is organizations sometimes can kind of throw you like Horizon Zero Dawn. I read an article there that explained how it worked because thank goodness it was really strange. But it's like each disc is like set for like almost like a different tone, like a different mood. So like rather than it just going through like chronologically, like a lot of Japanese soundtracks kind of basically get beginning to end almost. Or like they'll do most of it and then they'll put like the stuff that's not as important at the end. It's like a bunch of like 1-minute tracks or whatever. But with Horizon, it's like you get all the big thematic moments on disc 1, and then disc 2 you get like the ambient stuff, and then disc 3 you get more like this tribal experimental stuff, and then disc 4 you get like all the high energy battle music and everything. And so it's like the range of like where my opinion went on that Horizon soundtrack just like really changed up a lot because
that first disc, you're like, this is all pretty heavy.
Well, no, the first disc is like, I am hearing Aloy's theme over and over and over again.
Yeah, all right.
And I was like, can I get away from Aloy's theme? And then like I don't hear it at all in the next 3 discs because that's the way they organized it.
Right. So when you kind of discover that, do you have this sense of like, well, okay, I've listened to it this way. I've listened to it the way they've presented it. Now let me just jumble them all up together. Does that create for a different sound? Or do you feel pretty adamant about listening to it only how they present it, how they give it to you?
I don't necessarily feel adamant about it. It's just there's so much to listen to that like I can't, like, I'll probably like listen to like the top 3 or top 5 a few times, but like most of the things I'm probably going to be like listen through one time and like try to like note my opinion of as best as I can.
Sure.
But yeah, it was like, once I got past that first disc, like the Horizon soundtrack got way more interesting for me. So it would be cool to like, pull up a playlist that was a bit more chronological, but it's not a game that can be chronological, right? It's like you're exploring, you're going to see some things before I see them. And,
right.
And so, there's a lot of it is very, obviously it's location based. So,
you mentioned that there were soundtracks that you were really looking forward to that disappointed you a little bit, like Chronicles 2. Were there other soundtracks that you didn't necessarily think much of but really surprised you, really stood out?
Well, kind of how you were talking earlier about, everyone says this thing is good, but you're not really paying enough attention to that until, and then you get to it and it's like, oh, okay, got it. It's the Nier Automata soundtrack. Like, it's just...
Yes.
I have not gotten to anything so far that challenges that soundtrack. It is so well done, just beginning to end. And it's funny because it's not every track, but in a way it feels like every track is like, oh, this must be like the climax of the game. And there's so much like vocals in there. Like I feel like vocalist stuff tends to be a rarity in game music.
Right.
And then just over and over and like a lot of different styles, and then like you've got English and French and Japanese, and then this mixed up, made up language for the game, and just like the amount of work that goes into that, and then on top of that, like the sense of momentum and transitions that this game makes, to where it's just like utterly fascinating to listen to this music, and then I think that it's probably more dynamic in the game, but one of the things that really impressed me is that they transition like completely effortlessly from like chip tunes straight into like full out vocals, big instrumentals, and it's like I just had to like rewind and listen to that moment again, because like you just made it act like it wasn't hard. Like that's not an easy thing to do.
Blood.
Can you imagine him? Blood just like, because he's mellowed out, he's not doing anything else.
Right.
Strictly listening to music, says, hold on, I need to hear that again.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That is
Blood.
super cool.
Yeah.
And Blood, I hate that I'm doing this, because I hate it when people do it to me. I think all of us on some level get annoyed when people do it to us excessively. But like what happened with Nier that was so interesting is I played through it and reviewed it before other allies had a chance to get their hands on it, and I felt really, really good about it. And it is kind of a weird thing that happens with reviews sometimes, where like you'll experience it and the other people that you're very close to and really respect their opinions a lot will play it, and they might have a polar opposite, where you loved it, they didn't like it as much, not that they hated it, but they just weren't quite as warm on it, or the opposite, where you weren't really feeling it and they loved it. And that kind of happened with Nier, where I played it and loved it, and then I think the people who played it after me just weren't quite as hot on it, based on how you're describing the music and how drawn to you are and how impressed you are with it. Now I want to see what you think about the story and how it presents it, and the music within those scenes, because just how you're describing the music, I think you would take so much out of it. Obviously, that's a lot to ask. It's a long game. It's a huge game. So even if it doesn't happen for Game of the Year awards, I hope just for your own sake, at some point in 2018, you get around to it, because I would really like to hear your thoughts. I think you'd have some interesting perspectives on that. Kyle.
Yeah.
What's the best soundtrack of the year?
So here's the weird thing. I notoriously turned the music down for Nier.
Right, as you do.
Yeah, I do.
That's just hard to hear.
Yeah.
That's just like a thing that you said that's just hard to hear.
But I don't think it's bad music, and like if it's leading soundtrack of the year, I definitely will support it. It was overwhelming. Just like it sucks you in, and you can't multitask when that music's playing. And so I think it kind of like when we're talking about Hollow Knight, where you look at the characters like, oh, that's from Hollow Knight. Just the music, you're like, oh, that's from Nier Automata. Mm-hmm. It is just so unique, and it has a vibe that is so in tune with what the rest of the game is. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good soundtrack.
Okay. Respectable pick.
If we're picking, I know Zelda gets a lot of flack for its soundtrack, but like I was just. I think it's the right soundtrack for the game.
Yeah.
Which makes it an interesting conversation. Yeah. But like it's not as good as other Zelda soundtracks in a weird way.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I feel like it's implemented really well as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subtlety, and especially, like people brought up the whole thing with Terrytown, where like every time you bring a new character into Terrytown, like there's more to that track.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something like the Rito Village song. It's like, oh, I recognize this. It was better the first time.
Yeah.
It's like Wind Waker was such a good soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
but
it is.
That's why I do think trying to listen to these things within the right context is so important. Because in Zelda, for example, when you're fighting those machines and like the weird piano that is playing, that's so good. It creates this feeling of an easiness incredibly well, but is not something I would ever listen to in the car.
Right.
And that's valuable too. Mm-hmm. Like they're using music as a weapon for tone, and I love it.
Right. And so when I said like I think it's the right soundtrack for the game, I don't know what you reward, what you award. I don't know which way to go with that.
Right, because a lot of these arguments, right, and because we did a top 10 like gaming series soundtracks thing on game trailers, and a lot of those arguments came down to, we'll play it, we'll judge it right here, and that's kind of stupid for what we're talking about specifically.
Didn't Final Fantasy win
as number one?
Was it number one?
I don't remember.
I don't remember
I have
off
a
the top of
terrible
my head.
memory.
Oh, I think Zelda won.
What
I don't know. I think Jones pushed. I think he pushed Final Fantasy over Zelda.
I think he probably did.
Yeah.
That seems like something that would happen.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's something that we would all like be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Too much trust.
What's interesting about those lists that I think about, I never remember like 1 through 3
Yeah.
because that's where the fights were happening. It was the 10 through 7.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the real slugfest went down.
Like I think I fought to get Halo on there. It's like, why do I have to fight for Halo?
We had a long conversation about World of Warcraft.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a rough one. You're right. That was a mean fight.
Do you know what's really good though? HOTTAKE!
Oh!
You know what's kind of lame? Huh. And I admit that it's lame, but I don't have like a better answer for it at this time.
Huh.
You do something like a HOTTAKE, you try to catch people off guard.
Yeah.
And then it's always like, you need to write down that time.
Yeah.
You're kind of draining your own momentum a little bit. You can't
yeah.
launch right into the topic.
Ryan Seacrest can write and announce at the same time.
Okay.
That's what it like. We just have to put in our hours. You know what I mean? We just got to
Now
put
I
in the
just feel
time.
bad.
No,
I just
we're a
feel
long
bad.
way. Like we can't be Ryan Seacrest out the gate. You know, we're years behind.
That's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Theory, strategy suggestion.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Write down that time code before you do it. Like
But then we'd
while we're
see
just
it.
having that
Yeah,
wrap-up
you'd expect it.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like, you
I
know.
mean,
It'd be
I think
hard.
it's something worth trying out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with
Because
you.
I mean, you
Yeah.
could be writing anything on there, and I'm not paying attention to what you're doing with your pen.
Okay.
All right.
I buy that. Because that would be my concern, is that it would give it away. But you're right. Now everybody's going to be watching the next episode. Now, we've let the cat out of the bag. That's okay. Anyway, the topic for this frame trap is kind of a piecing together of different things that we've talked about, but is something that I can't really let go of, and I want your opinion on.
Ooh.
Panel. I want to talk about new technology within games and how resistant we are to it a lot of the time. What I mean by that is I think about like VR right now. And it's not that VR things aren't happening, right? You have big things like Fallout 4 VR, Skyrim VR recently. You're always able to bring something cool to Frame Trap in regards to VR. But that buzz, the sort of we've got to cover it sensation that I felt from the general gaming media has completely flatlined.
Yeah.
And, you get into these stories, and this is where I want to piece it together with more technology. You get these stories, you had it with Kinect, you had it with VR, where it's like, we're selling really, really well. It's not that people aren't buying these things, it's not that they're experiencing them. But I think what is happening, my own theory, and why you see something like the Wii, and then you see kind of like a soft implementation of those ideas in the Wii U, and then kind of a complete abandonment in the Switch, is people want to keep up with as much as possible. And if you're going to introduce something that makes it more of a hassle, eventually the novelty is going to wear thin and they're going to drop it. So where this is coming from is my own personal experience.
Yeah.
I'm interested in a lot of VR games, and when I do take the effort to set up my VR and deal with it,
Yeah.
I like it a lot. But taking the time to set it up is often enough of a barrier that I'm just like, well, I've got a zillion other games that I need to catch up on.
Same, dude. Yeah.
Where I don't need to set up anything. I just flip on my TV and there I go. I'm playing whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it is. I think it's a thing of convenience. And I think it even happened with the Wii, right? You think about the Wii and you think about like Wii Sports and how exciting that was. Eventually it got to a point where like, well, I don't want to bring it to grandma's house because then I got to deal with the sensor bar. Like eventually you reach that point. And so the question for this HOTTAKE is, are we just lazy jerks? Or is the technology not well enough supported to overcome that hurdle? And how do we overcome that hurdle if there's always a lot going on in a quote-unquote traditional sense, where there's traditional PC games that are really exciting that we need to play, console games, handheld games, etc.? How do we deal with that?
Go ahead, bud.
I think we're lazy jerks.
You think we're lazy jerks? That's it. That's like the answer.
I think there's a holodeck. You come home from a long day at work. You don't want to run around and jump in a holodeck. You don't want to like physically have this conversation with some person who's like, just let me tap the button and read what they have to say. It's let me just pick option 3. It's good. I don't want to try to express my feelings in a way that you can interpret. Like that. I'm just like, projecting into the future the same kind of problems we're gonna have. It's funny because like I wonder, because the like the Google Homes and Alexas and all that stuff, like they're really big this holiday season as well. But
yeah.
I'm a lazy jerk with that too. It's like I don't want to like talk to this thing and like have it not understand and like say it again. Like just type it into Google and then like click on result number 6. You know, like I don't know. You know, there's definitely limitations there.
Ben, so it's really, this touches on something that's I've been thinking about for a while. Is just how adaptive humans are. You think if we could transport VR to 1970, everyone would go nuts for it?
You would think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm impressed about by humans is how quickly we can become bored with something. We'll be bored for our entire existence. It's just like how strange it is that we relate so closely to our ancestors from thousands of years ago is crazy to me. Like we have the same problems. We're always going to be bored. We're always going to get tired of things. And so we're always like fireworks for some reason. But it's crazy to me, Ben. I think like we have this incredible VR technology, but we're bored with it already. It's human.
Do you think that's what it is, though? Do you think it's boredom? Because I have an idea of
maybe unimpressed.
I don't even think that it's unimpressed. Just from a personal experience, I think it is ease of access to way too many things.
Yeah,
and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like you're talking about multitasking during Nier, and I'm not trying to pick on you. This is something that I go through, right? Where like I go home and it's like, okay, from my TV right now, I can stream just a stupid amount of anime or shows or movies. I just have access to an embarrassing amount of things to watch.
Podcast.
Right.
This very podcast.
Yeah. This very podcast. All of these amazing things that I just couldn't access in a volume like this ever before. Like, this isn't crazy. And so I feel this anxiety, this pressure to like do that. Yeah. But also, there are all of these video games that I could be playing on Steam right now. There's a bunch of Steam games I'm behind on, a bunch of Switch games that I'm behind on, a bunch of PlayStation games, a bunch of Xbox games. There's so many things. Like, in all of those different categories, I'm not caught up on any of them. How could you be caught up on any of them if you've got access to all of these things? And so I think that's where it comes down to, is just we want to do so much that any one thing can't hold us for too long because we're being pulled in all these different directions.
Yeah.
And I think even if I think the counter argument to that is just hunker down and finish one thing. And that's fine. I see a lot of people do that. I see a lot of people like playing their backlog. But even if you commit to that choice, which is a good decision, I'm not saying it's not, you're missing out on a bunch of other things too. You know, even if it's like, well, okay, I'm going to do VR after I finish all my PS4 games. All of those PS4 games are so long, so involved, and there's so many other currently releasing PS4 games that you're missing out on. It's like, how do we do it? And so I think what I'm trying to say with this HOTTAKE is I feel like new technology loses to the rate at which we're getting things that we're already entrenched with. You know? Like, no matter what happens, we're going to be playing video games with controllers because we like playing video games with controllers. You're not going to abandon that for the sake of VR. You're still going to do that. Yeah. And so working against that, VR has this huge mountain to climb, don't you think?
It does, but the idea that new technologies will always lose out to the thing that we have and that we like is, that's counter to the idea of technology and innovation.
But could you maybe make an argument that the new technologies that have taken hold aren't necessarily like crazy new ways of doing things, but taking something that we already do or a bunch of things that we want to do and just piecing them together? Like, yeah. Isn't the smartphone the epitome of that?
Right. It's simplification.
Right. It's consolidation. Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I'm not hard on VR. That's why I think it is where it is right now. It's like they haven't simplified it yet, and it's a novelty product. Maybe it's selling better than a novelty product would, but I still think it's niche. I think that VR studios who make VR games, they can succeed, and that many are. But like, it's not broad because of how complicated it is. Yeah. And just like you said, like if you have to move a couch to play this thing, that's a huge hurdle. And I know it seems like lazy. That's the thing. Yeah. It's just like humans will always be lazy. We will never want to move our couch no matter how crazy the holodeck is. depending on what the time is, you know, like 100 years from now, if they send our holodeck here, we're like, oh, this is so cool. But 100 years in the future, when they're having that holodeck, just like Blood, they're just like, I don't want to deal with my holodeck, dude. It sucks. And so I think like, yeah, it's just like, it's as technology increases, the human adapts and gets bored with it. Like, I just think we're going to be bored of space travel. I think we're going to be bored of being infinite. You know, when the singularity comes, we're going to be bored of living forever. But sorry, more related to your question with VR.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay about where it is right now. I think that it just has to improve. It has to become, like you said, the iPhone, because we all had iPods. Well, iPods were intensely popular. I guess like MP3 players. You know what I mean? Like no real MP3 player really dominated until iPod figured it out and said, look, it can be this simple. And so that's what VR needs. Like, it can be this simple, actually. It can be this. And, you know, it'll be a while.
I think that is just like a defining human characteristic that we will never overcome, is like the kid and the pet situation. Like every single day, there's a kid who wants a pet that goes, yes, I will take it for a walk every day. Yes, I will feed it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And without fail, that won't happen. The kid will go to the parent to pick up the slack of the kid, because the kid believes it. It's not that the kid is lying. The kid believes that thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
But we are human, and we are bored so easily.
Yeah.
And the depressing thing is you often have that scenario where it's like, let's take this back to the 70s and show it to them. In like a year, are they bored of it?
Yeah, in a year they are.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so depressing. And so is the answer, Kyle, because the reason why I bring this up is you keep VR in my mind. Thanks to you bringing up all of these games, I'm like, no, I should buy that. I should check that out. And like, I'm saving like a space for it in my brain because you have these really cool stories. You have these really cool experiences. You keep saying to me like, yeah, I know it's a pain to move your couch, but it's worth it ultimately. Like, there's good stuff happening here.
Yeah.
And so don't you feel this sense of fear, this sense of guilt of like, there's something worth protecting here? Like let's figure this out so this doesn't go away. So this doesn't like go the way of so many other new technologies within video games?
I can't see it failing. I really can't. I think it'll improve and improve. I don't think it'll explode soon, is what I mean. And so I don't feel guilt. I don't feel like I should push it on anybody because it's prohibitively expensive. You know what I mean? And so I'm cool with it. I'm cool with where VR is right now.
But you think it's safe to a degree?
Yeah. In fact, I think it'd be annoying if every mass media is like talking about the new VR game. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it'd be annoying to people who are like, I can't afford that. Stop
Okay.
talking about that. You know what I mean? I think it's getting the attention that it needs. Maybe it's underrepresented. We get comments even with Easy Allies where people are like, I'd really love to see more VR coverage. I'm very into VR and I don't see any outlet really focusing on VR. I think there's a space there somewhere. But yeah, I think I'm cool with where it is right now.
So you're saying that it's just taking its natural course.
Yes.
That it had that big
Yeah.
explosion, that spike, and now it's just kind of floating on just fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel any sense that it's dying out. Like,
Sure.
you know, and I think PSX kind of supported that. There's a lot of VR there. There are a lot of developers interested in creating VR stuff. I think to me, the biggest hurdle VR is going to have to deal with, and I think the thing that could potentially kill it and make it difficult to move on, is when we get to that point where we actually need Gen 2. When people have to replace headsets, when there's like better headsets out
that's
there.
Such a good point. That's such a good point.
You know, it's like, I already spent how much on this and you want me to buy it again, you know, without realizing that, like, no, this actually is going to make the whole thing so much better and easier for everybody to jump into. But it doesn't have that early adopter buzz. It doesn't have that, you know, dad wants this for Christmas buzz. It's, you know, it's a little, that's going to be hard.
Sure. But I guess,
How do you deal with people that have one headset, not the other?
wouldn't it kind of work the same way that these enhanced versions of consoles are working and like new iterations of Nintendo handhelds are working, where it's like I'm invested in this ecosystem, right? Like I care so much about these games that I'm playing that I want them to be as good as possible. Therefore, I can justify the cost that it would take to keep up to date with that. Like, I think there is a strong market for that in video games. So aren't there probably a lot of people who feel that way about VR, where it's like, I'm invested in VR. I love this technology. I already spent a ton of money on it, but I care about it so much and I'm getting enough from it that I'm going to do it. Like, that exists,
Count on it,
right?
Yeah. And I think it's VR people more than most.
Right.
They're already people who are like, I'm fine with spending $300 on, you know what I mean? They're already those people.
Okay.
So I think they will buy whatever, because the next version of PSVR can't use Move controllers and it can't use the PlayStation camera. You know what I mean? They got as far as they could with those, but I think with motion tracking going forward, they're going to need a new controller and they're probably going to need a new sensor.
So talking about that,
or sensors,
evolving that PlayStation VR headset.
Yeah.
And moving well beyond those things as they need to, wouldn't that create a dramatically higher priced headset? And doesn't that kind of take away from the appeal of PlayStation VR right now, where it is this nice entry level thing, even though it's nowhere near as good as the obviously more expensive?
I don't think the headset is the thing that makes PSVR convenient. I think it's the PS4.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's like yeah, the Oculus and the Vive are really cool, but like, what kind of computer do I need to like actually make these things run the way that they should?
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to...
You don't have that question with the PS4.
The question that I'm trying to pose, and maybe a better way to express it, is right now you have PlayStation VR, which it's like if you already have a PlayStation 4, you don't have to invest as much into it as you do other things. And I think you look at something like Oculus and Vive, you take these technologies where it's like, okay, this is exciting right now because this is still a new thing, but marching forward where you need to address these problems of making the VR experience easier, better, more convenient, doesn't that naturally raise the price? And in general, what is the marketing message for each of these different things? Like, can these all peacefully coexist going forward? How do you change? How do you pivot? How do you adapt? Like, how do you keep this thing healthy?
It's a good question, Ben, because, we talk about the iPod version of VR and the iPhone version of VR. I don't think it's PlayStation 5. I don't think it's even coming that soon. So I think you keep marketing it toward small audiences. I really do. I don't think you go broad with VR for the next 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That's so, I don't know.
That is crazy because you brought up the iPhone.
Yeah.
And like, to me, part of the reason the iPhone is so successful is because it just is constantly dominating the conversation.
Yeah.
You have a big new thing come out, and then by the time everybody gets like completely done with that, there's a new thing to talk about, or like they're talking about a different thing that is intrinsically connected with the phone, like the watch or something like that. Like,
yeah.
I think constantly being a part of the conversation is very, very effective. But are you saying with VR that the audience isn't even big enough to do that at that moment?
Yeah, because the product is too complicated.
So when do you, as the person in charge, when do you flip that switch and go, okay, now it's time to, we've done a good job of building.
I think they want to make the simplified product, but I don't think we have the technology yet. They want to make the thing that's just like, okay, I'm good. You know what I mean? I think we're just not there yet.
But they have to flip that switch at some point, right?
Yeah.
Or is that not true?
I think the switch is flipped. Okay. Sony's investing money in it big time. They're doing their research and development, but now we just gotta wait.
Yeah,
there are many people who
we got to get away from wires for one.
Yeah,
the wires I think is probably one of the biggest barriers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, bringing up Apple is pretty key because Samsung has done the Gear VRs and stuff, but Apple hasn't seemed to say anything about VR, and it makes me curious whether they would do something like a Samsung Gear VR or something that's more standalone, or something that would integrate with a phone or an iPad or a Mac. That's.
Or if they're doing AR, they're researching it.
It's an interesting thing that they haven't really come out and done anything in that space.
Yeah,
but. You bringing up, you just saying Samsung and Apple made me think of this weird time that we had right around the time of like the original Watch Dogs, where there was this very quickly done but intense, like, here's how we're gonna involve your tablet with your AAA console.
Oh, the second screen,
the second screen experience,
yeah.
Where a lot of people went so hard on that and then completely abandoned it. And just the sense that I got is they almost learned that it's like, okay, we can have like companion games that work on this thing, but we need to separate them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about VR, does it get away from gaming at some point? Like, let's say you have
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah, but let's say you have other companies outside the realm of video games really investing and iterating on this technology, and that's where it gets adapted and that's where it gets picked up on. When you do that, is that a threat to video game implementation? Because, like, is the onus on them to update just as hard, and if they don't, they'll kind of be forgotten about? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's like you have these two different markets that are moving at completely different speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, Ben. Because I'm thinking about, like, let's think for real. I think Resident Evil 7 is a very unique game because it sells well as its own non-VR game, but it's just one of the best VR games at the same time. And I think that would be the goal going forward, right? Is that when VR is well implemented in the video game space, that, like, all games are cross-compatible with VR. Right. I can't even see that happening, dude. I can't.
But why not? Because I think you're really hitting the nail on the head here. I think Resident Evil 7 is in this perfect position where you can go and you can buy Resident Evil 7 on its own, and it's a great experience. But even if you don't have VR, I think there's something in a lot of people's minds where they keep hearing about how good it is in VR. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of this continual advertisement where you don't feel pressure or you don't feel like you're not getting the thing, but it could be even better. And I think that's a really enticing prospects for video games to be in, where it's like, okay, I'm attached to this series. I can play through it all the way and have it be really good, but if I played through it in VR, it would be even better. Why isn't that happening more? Why are we not getting more games that are taking kind of the both directions with it?
I think that's budget, right? I assume Sony injected a lot of budget into Resident Evil 7 to make that VR happen.
But aren't there big enough games? Like, it doesn't even have to be that many. I'm not saying everybody do this.
Yeah.
But aren't there big enough games that we're already spending so much money on anyway that it would be worth thinking about?
Like, why can't we play God of War in VR?
Or have it have, like, a substantial VR component.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't solve that problem right now, but it's like, if that is your flagship title from one of the biggest video game makers in the world, why are you ignoring something that you're investing in so heavily anyway?
Yeah. And so when you say flip the switch, you mean that? You mean, like, go hard on it?
Like,
yeah,
go hard.
I get what you're saying.
No stone left unturned kind of mentality.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I bet it's the interest level as well. I think Capcom was genuinely interested in making a VR game.
Yeah.
I wonder if Sony Santa Monica would be, if they were told, hey, actually, we're doing all this in VR. I wonder how many people would say, all right.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Is that it though? Is it like perception of backlash?
Yeah.
Where if they get out there and be like, the next God of War game, you're going to be able to play entirely in VR. Are they worried about all the headlines that are just doubting that?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a big sell. I don't know if that it's enough of a pull. You know, that might be their concern.
Well, you also have to, again, deal with different performance benchmarks. I mean, it's no secret that, like, any VR game, if you took it out of VR, looks pretty much like garbage side by side. You know, like even Resident Evil 7, like it's a good looking game, but it's not as good looking as it would be if they were making that VR.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it. I mean, it just goes back to the whole, you know, like the 60 frames per second versus 30 frames per second conversation. And you can't put something on PlayStation VR unless it's at least 60 frames per second. So that's that is a hard line in the sand from Sony, you know, and just because of how your body reacts to that stuff.
I guess, is it also a question of mindset though, where you have all these limitations, where you have all these hurdles that you need to overcome, where it's like, okay, we have to think about how people who are huge fans of this series are going to react. You have to think about performance issues. You have to think about comparison issues, all of these things. Like, is the problem that there's just a way out? Like, we're just not going to do it. Like, do you think it's just a lack of necessity in a lot of instances, where it's like, it's just too much hassle? We're already trying to make a game that's hard enough in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, your question, Ben, is VR the future? Yeah. Is it the inevitable future?
Yeah.
I think it's not.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah. And so in that case, you know, I would invest what I am investing.
Right. Because to me, what would convince me that it's the future is that those problems are being solved right now during the formative years.
Yeah.
Because if they're not going to be solved now, you're not going to solve them later. Like, it's not. This is the time when we're in the beginning. You either face it or you don't. In my opinion, it's not something that gets any easier. It's just going to get harder.
Yeah. I wonder, dude. I wonder if we have TVs in our room in 10 years.
We're just all watching our phones.
Or like we could put on glasses that have our TVs in front of us. Yeah, I wonder. I truly wonder that. How long can TVs still be a product?
I think a long time.
I mean,
you're being a lonely hermit man right now. If you think that's why the 3D TVs didn't work, because everyone had to have glasses and people, couldn't just have a bunch of people over to watch a movie. And
gotcha. Right.
It's
so you're saying because we like sharing things so much, because we like watching football or The Bachelor in a room together, innately we'll just need TVs for ages.
I think that's a good component to bring up. And maybe I'm just the lonely hermit man too.
Yeah.
But to me, the reason you need a TV is because, yeah, sure, you could watch this stuff on a different device, but if you want it to look the best, you have to get on TV. The TV, like this sort of idea that you are getting the best presentation on a big TV, I think is still super appealing. Mm-hmm. But the minute that it isn't, like let's say you can put a plug in the back of your brain and have the best experience ever. What do you need a TV for?
People will be so in on that thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also, like VR's it's like headphones, basically. It's like you're shutting out everything, and a lot of people, like you're saying, people multitask. People don't shut out everything. They just stick Star Trek on, when they. They're on Twitter and they're also, cooking dinner and they're all doing this stuff at the same time, it's like.
Yeah, Blood, that's such a crucial component that you just brought up because, like, just living with another person, we enjoy doing a lot of things together. But, like, whenever I'm playing VR, she's like, this sucks for me. Like, I'm just watching you move your head around and you can't hear me and you can't see me. And so, like, let's not do this together anymore.
Yeah.
That's a problem that needs to be solved. For sure.
Yeah.
Will it ever? Will it ever be solved? Is a question.
I don't think it really can be.
I mean, if the solution is buy another headset, that's not feasible.
No.
You can't just do that. Okay, we've gone on probably far too long.
Although I don't think enough people have done like multiplayer interactive stuff. I haven't seen a lot of that. I don't know how much have you seen.
What's
Kyle?
it called? The VR Hangout game?
VR chat?
VR chat.
Oh,
you
right.
gotta check out VR chat.
Yeah.
That's very multiplayer.
That seems terrifying.
It's terrifying. I don't want to.
I'm sure it is, but I think that's.
Can you download it on PSVR?
No.
Okay. Then I'm safe.
Yeah.
Because like my curiosity would get to me.
Yeah.
And I'd have to, and you would do, right?
The itch.
Yeah, you'd have to know. All right, it's time for emails. Last segment of the show. Our first email comes in from Morgan. He says, "Hello, allies. I have a question about alternate editions of games. I recently went to a Best Buy and was looking at the movies they had. Each movie had 2 or 3 versions at different price points. Then I thought, just like video games. In that moment, I caught myself and said out loud, wait, not like games at all. These movies had editions that showed behind the scenes."
Wait, hold on. Are we still in the quotes?
No, we're not.
Wait,
still in the
not like games at all. These movies had
the quotes was wait, not like games at all.
Oh, okay.
That was the quoted part. These movies had editions that showed. Did I say quote? Is that what I said?
No. But he said out loud.
Oh,
and then I wondered when the out loud ends. It's still an absurd thing to say out loud. Sorry for interrupting this email 3 times.
It's okay.
But just like, wait, not like games at all is such a funny thing to say in the middle of a store. Wait.
Not like my video games. All right.
Okay.
These movies had editions that showed behind the scenes, director's cuts, director's commentary, deleted scenes, concept art, the trailer, interactive menus, etc. Meanwhile, video games are lucky to have 1 or 2 of these features. Video game special editions seem to mostly consist of the same things, which are costumes/skins, season passes, or some mid-range skills/weapons, EXP items. Why can't games have the same kind of depth as these film special editions? What is your dream edition of a beloved game? Below is an idea I had to come up with for inspiration's sake. So he lists like what he would want out of like a Bloodborne special edition. But the point of the question here is, why aren't we getting like sweet behind the scenes director's commentary in every special edition? Why isn't that a standard? Is that a problem? Do you even want that stuff?
I love that stuff. God of War 2 has a really good here's what it took to make this game documentary on it. And like, I love that. I love it so much. But I have to imagine it's so much extra time and budget put onto games that are already constrained on time and budget.
Exactly.
And so like,
I feel the opposite.
Huh.
They've already done it all. They've already done it and given it away for free.
Oh, with the developer diaries.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Like, it's all on their YouTube channel. Like, I do think there's a case that stuff could be repackaged and edited in a more, digestible fashion to where you could just put it on the disc and let it roll. But yeah, I think the reason that you don't see that a lot is because it's not a selling point. Like, with a movie, it's like, okay, well, you already saw that movie in the theater. Now you can see how it was made. Like, it's
and
a
also
long...
like Netflix will never have this stuff. You got to buy this disc to check out this stuff, which I think is also important.
Yeah. So whereas with games, it's like, you run in those opposite. Either like you've already seen all that stuff, oddly enough, before you played the game, or this is the first time this game is coming out, so there isn't time to like actually like process and do that because like we just finished crunching the game and we're still working on it while you're buying it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Whereas like the movie, it's like, okay, they finished the movie, they packaged the movie. A little while later, it went into theaters, and then 3 to 6 months later, now you're buying it in a store. So there's been a lot more time to do this extra stuff.
I think the thing that disappoints me the most, and I completely am on board with everything you're saying, but when it comes to the games that haven't been released in a long time and are releasing again on new platforms, where like you look at films and all the times they'll have like this 20th anniversary, 30th anniversary, special, never been on Blu-ray before. Here's all these things. Like we're chatting with the director a long time. You don't get a lot of that stuff. You don't get a lot of let's reflect on this game now that we're so much older and done so many more things. And I don't understand why that isn't happening because that doesn't make as much sense in this cycle that you're talking about.
Yep. So like Mega Man Legacy Collection has such cool like art, some concept art, box art, which I think is actually really cool to preserve. But how cool would it be if we had those interviews where it's like talking about, we made that first Mega Man after hours.
Right.
We didn't even we were just, it was kind of a passion project. And then when it came out, it was so like, that'd be so fun to watch. That'd be
so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
But with like the Legacy Collection specifically, both of them, is it just like a decision? Is it just like we either do the challenges, we do that whole new thing for each game, or do we do this?
Yeah, and like if the budgets are equal for some reason, I would say do the challenges.
But
also
because I like Blood, I don't know if they're a selling point.
Inafune, right? That when you have to get ex-Capcom people, when you get Capcom to agree to interview ex-Capcom people, it'd be pretty difficult.
It happens in Hollywood, man. We got to get
over it.
Yeah, it
would, but it's a whole other story dealing with Japanese companies.
True.
I think the ultimate takeaway is that we want it.
Yeah.
We want it.
It's just hard to budget. Hard to rationalize a budget.
You know what was a really good example of that? One of the first that I'd ever seen is Star Wars Rogue Squadron on GameCube. Had behind the scenes documentary thing in there and had like commentary track under the levels and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. It did have. I don't think I've watched the documentary on that. I gotta watch that now. Really, it's got like I could watch behind the scenes of that.
I think so. Maybe I'm thinking more of the commentary track. But,
okay.
But they definitely had like some extra bonus features in there that you would expect from a DVD, and games hadn't really done that much of that.
The Valve games that do it.
Yeah,
really cool. I like that.
The Valves are really cool.
Was in my brain the whole time. Yep. All right, our next email comes in from Alexander. He says, enjoying the second playthrough. Hello, allies. I have a problem that maybe you can help me with. The thing is that every time I'm replaying a game, I enjoy it way less than my first playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
The story, the characters, the world have no surprises anymore, and every emotional point is too familiar to leave a huge impact. And since I'm not as invested in the game as in my first playthrough, I start to notice bad things like plot holes, bad AI, repetitive design, and so on.
The Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon issue.
Kind of.
Yeah, you're seeing the holes now.
Yeah. Obviously, these newfound problems poison my impression of the game, so to preserve my memory, I have to never replay games that I love the most.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, replay your favorite games all the time and keep enjoying them. Is it just your mindset, or is there some secret that I can use for myself? Here's my answer to that.
Okay.
Because I don't mind replaying games that I haven't played in a long time, because this is the mentality I take. I'm willing to accept modern concessions. Like, I think the reason that you're enjoying it less is maybe you're just so adamant on being like, I have to play this game in exactly the same way that I did when it first came out. Like, if I'm playing an old game and it's like, hey, you can use save states, I'm not above that. I'll use the save states if it makes it a more enjoyable experience.
Absolutely.
If I get stuck on some super old game, like, yes, I would hope that I would make an attempt to try to work through it. But if I get like really, really stuck and I want to keep playing it, I think it's okay to go on the internet and be like, hey, how do I get past this one part? And that wasn't an option before. And so I think a lot of why I'm willing to enjoy older games is because like those modern conveniences I will totally take, and I think that's fine. I think it's just about enjoying the games.
But I strongly relate to this though. You know,
Sure.
I don't like to rewatch movies. I don't like to rewatch TV shows. Basically, it's a matter of time. To me, I need a separation of time. There are very few movies I'm willing to rewatch like back to back. Like Star Wars, I'll do it. But even like that's kind of like a bummer to watch Star Wars a second time, and it's like, yeah, I know all this.
I was going to do it and
Yeah.
then realized that I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Because I don't usually enjoy, except with some exceptions, I don't enjoy watching movies again.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know the story.
Yeah.
But don't you think the difference is, and maybe this will go away, like there are just sometimes that I want to play Sonic 2.
Sonic 2 is a great example. Yeah.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
It's fun doing the challenges that it presents to me. Mm-hmm. And it's not that much of an investment.
And it never stops you. It never stops you to say, okay, and
Right.
here's the story again. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's a really good one.
it also never stops you to say, here's how you do the spin. Like,
Yeah.
you just go. You just
Yeah.
put it in, you go. And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
you need that in your life.
Mario 3, I'll replay a bunch of times, yeah.
But do you think that the reason why we cling to that era so strongly is because it has that maybe we won't want to replay a lot of the things that we're praising now?
Yeah, I don't want to replay Hollow Knight.
Sure.
I love Hollow Knight. I'm not going to replay it.
But it doesn't make it any less of a game. You just don't
Yeah.
want to replay it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But where do you stand, dude?
I don't know. I guess I don't have that much of an issue replaying most games. I think when it comes to something like, you know, like mega RPG, like Dragon Quest VIII or something, that's like that's just a time investment thing. It's like oh, am I gonna replay that again? It's like huge. Okami is gigantic. But I still kind of enjoy, picking those things up and going back into them. I guess I don't. It's like, like I don't know that I feel like I see more problems with the game the second time around so much, like they were describing.
I also think that just on some level, I understand that it's like, it came from a time. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that can be beneficial in a way because there are some things that I think we move away from that I wish we would go back to. And so it's kind of a push and pull of like, yes, I accept that certain things are not going to be as good because obviously, but also that's why it's so much fun to go back and revisit old games because it's like, oh, this idea, why didn't we do more of that? Like you find little things that never got picked up on. So our last email.
Okay.
They didn't have to do that, says Andrew.
Oh.
Hey allies, in Horizon Zero Dawn's DLC, you can shoot an arrow in the snow and it visibly leaves an indentation. But if you shoot a fire arrow, it burns for a second and leaves an even bigger mark in the snow.
They didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to add that little detail, but they totally did, and it was awesome. What is a small detail in a game that you have played that made you excited?
Oh gosh. I'm so terrible at point blank questions.
Bad Boys, Miami Takedown. There's a house of cards. You can shoot that house of cards. It'll flop over. That game in particular, I know it's like a funny joke. It's a meme game, but it has so many fun, destructible elements that you wouldn't expect. And so anytime I can interact with something that I didn't expect to be able to interact with, I'm very much in favor of it. I really enjoy it. Sorry, back to Hollow Knight. You
Yeah.
can just bash a lot of things in the background.
Yeah.
Nothing comes out of them, but it
But
just
it feels good.
Yep, and it keeps you active as you explore environments. Just like just hit a statue and knock it over. Like it makes your weapon feel real. It makes the environments feel real. They didn't have to do that.
I didn't have to do that. This is the one that first brings it to mind, so I feel like I should say it, but it's also like kind of embarrassing. I was in middle school, I think. Yeah, that's right. When I first played Max Payne, it was Max Payne 1. And you're going through this like seedy hotel and you have like the beds that like you can put a coin in and they'll move.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friend just got such a kick out of that.
Yeah.
That you could go up there and the bed would move.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to do that. It felt extra seedy because the bed moved. Because I made it move.
I think the two that come to mind right away. I was kind of surprised in Uncharted 4 with the winch that the actual cable like had physical interaction with things.
Yeah, that's a real rope.
That's a good one, Blood.
Yeah, it was like, what the heck is like? It's actually like bending around this thing, and I gotta like take the right route to wrap it around the tree. The other one, which is funny because I don't understand why some games do and some games don't, but the starting Life is Strange Before the Storm and seeing the reflection in the mirror. It was like, yes, this game can reflect you in a mirror. I'm so sick of games with mirrors, but you don't see anything, or you see something really stupid, you know? It's like...
Another one that I always appreciate and want to happen way more is when they change either the title screen throughout the game. So, like, depending on the environment that you're in, they'll change the title screen to that environment. Or, like, you'll meet a new character and they'll add into the title screen, something like that. Or, like, you beat the game and there's this cool title screen change.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you're really tying it all together. We did go on that journey. I like that, too. That's going to do it for emails. That's going to be an episode of Frame Trap. If you would like to write in an email, if you'd like us to pick apart your question, please email askeasyallies@gmail.com. I am your host for this Frame Trap. I'm Ben Moore. Sitting next to me is Kyle Bossman. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And at the end there, Daniel Bloodworth.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.